Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
One of my really great conversations, Henry Coleman III, who plays basketball at Texas A&M, right after we announced expansion. Henry was on our men's basketball leadership council call and asked, when are they going to join? And I said, is that because you don't want to play your in-state rival, or you do? And he said, I want to play them as soon as I can.
Just setting the standard. I told the defense like a couple weeks ago, we're going for donuts. I don't even want teams scoring, man. We've been doing this for a long time. We've been playing together for a long time. And then the younger guys coming in, once they see the standard, they'll know this is what we got to do, and then that'll gravitate to the younger guys that come when I'm going, you know. So just being the best leader I can be, so this defense can be the best defense South Carolina's ever seen.
You know, when you're the backup quarterback, it's kind of like the rental of the car. You know, if you get a dent in it or you know, you leave something in it, you're like, it's a rental. It's not a rental to him anymore. Right. It's his car. And he's got great pride in what he's driving. And he doesn't let anybody take advantage of what's going on now. He is so accountable. And I think when you move from that backup position to the starting position, you become less cavalier and much more focused. And for him, this is his chance. He's waited.
Yeah. He used this term, and now I'm using this term in description of him, because I really feel like, you know, there's very few superheroes and very few great ones that, you know, loved everyone and tried to help everyone they came in touch with forever.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That is Jared Hall. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. What's up, Jared?
Hey, I'm here with you.
Yeah?
I am here with you.
You are.
And, you know, we teased about a minute before we went on air. You said, I am not Damon Benning.
No, you're not.
Because I am too, did you say pasty?
No, I said you have too much of a beard. I don't know where you got pasty.
I think that was just in my own head. I mean, I'm not wrong.
You are a little paler.
Either,
a little paler. Just a little bit. A couple shades lighter.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. If you haven't met Jared before, he's from the No Block, No Rock podcast, as you probably couldn't tell by all the gear that he's wearing.
Yeah, I do have my NBNR joggers on too.
He doesn't. They don't have branded shoes yet, so we're working on that. But we appreciate Jared being here with us this morning as DB's out at his team camp for Westside for the week. Going to set up the show real quick because we do have Mitch Sherman coming up at 7:30 from The Athletic. Mitch was kind enough to be flexible with us this morning. Coming up at 8:30, we're going to talk to Steve Sipple from Husker Online. At 9, we've got Mike Schaefer from Husker 24/7. And then we're going to try and catch up with our guy DB at 9:45 to wrap up the show, if he's done with team practice by then. So
let's go, baby.
That's the show for today. We've got a lot of good stuff for you. As you heard, lots of stuff from SEC Media Days. But before we get into that, Jared, have you ever hosted a 3-hour radio show before?
I don't think I have.
Although sometimes those NBNR podcasts run a little long.
They drag.
I think the one you did with me was like a full 2 hours.
Yes. Hey, sometimes you get going on a good topic and
get rolling a little bit.
You get down some rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Well,
we never chase those on this show. I can assure you.
Okay.
No rabbit holes can be found here.
I don't know how to feel about that. I kind of like going down those rabbit holes.
We do. I tell people this all the time. I put together a rundown, and if we get to more than about 25% of it, then something probably went wrong.
Okay.
So there's some tangents that get chased a little bit around here.
Well, you had said if you come up with any topics, let me know. And so I was making some notes, and
you did not let me know, though.
No, I did not.
You forgot the second part of that equation there, bud.
Well, I was in my own head a little bit. I'm like, okay. You had said this is a 3-hour show.
It is a 3-hour show, yeah.
Like typically for NBNR.
Like Gilligan's Island, like 3-hour tour,
Yeah. I did some over-preparing.
Okay.
I always hear it's better to over.
That's true.
Than under.
It's true.
So
Nobody likes rooting for the under.
I killed it, man. There's so much.
So many topics.
Like I come up with so many talking points. I'm like, I'm not going to tell them.
I'm kind of curious now.
If we get to 10% of it,
Jared will be back on Friday as well for the show. So if you enjoy him, well, God help you. But you can also check him out on the No Block, No Rock podcast on, all the platforms. So let's start off. Did you watch any home run derby last night?
Listen, I was going to say, we got Shane on the ones and twos back here.
I see.
I'm like, he's going to play us into last night's national anthem. And he did not, which I don't know how to feel about that. I'm like, on one hand, I want to hear it again.
Yeah.
Just because at the time, I'm like, am I hearing this?
Yeah.
Is this real life? Am I dreaming?
Is this just fantasy?
Is this an acid? Yeah. And it was real.
As far as I can tell, it was real. As real as anything is in the simulation that we live in.
Dude. That kind of overshadowed the home run derby a little bit.
So a buddy of mine, shout out Heath, he texted me as I'm like wrapping up my tennis lesson. I do tennis on Mondays. And so I'm like wrapping this up, and he texted me. He goes, I don't know if you're watching the home run derby, but have you seen the anthem? And I was like, no, I'm going home to watch right now. And so he sends me the clip of it. And I'm watching it. I'm like 45 seconds in. I was like, it's not good, but it's fine. And then around the 1 minute mark, it just totally falls off the rails.
You're right, because there's like little nuggets in there.
Yeah, where you're just like, that's not great, but it's okay.
Like she's not doing good, but she can turn this around.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, it sort of seems like she might be finding it.
Like she's kind of holding a note, and then
and then the part that everybody, when the Rockets red glare, it is because you're going up, you're hitting those high notes. And it was as soon as she went for the win, I was like, come on. I was like, Heath, this is not that bad, bud. Like, come on. Like, it's not great. She seems nervous. I thought stylistically she probably is, because I don't know who that artist is. I've never heard of her.
Never heard of her in my life.
Never heard of her.
Mm-mm.
But just the way she was singing, she kind of has that like breathy, raspy voice. I was like, that's probably not a great choice for the anthem.
Yeah.
You kind of want one of those like, one of those like big voice, like, like a Mariah Carey or like one of those.
Whitney,
like,
classic.
R.I.P. I don't think she's coming back out for maybe the All-Star game, but not the home run derby.
But you need
but you need like a classic, like, I mean, they used to call them like crooners, but you need like the big voice, the classically sounding artists, not the kind of not Carl Lewis,
or Roseanne Barr.
But when if I should have known this, I should have waited. Because I know when you get to the Rockets red glare, that's when people get in trouble.
Yeah.
And boy, did she get in trouble. And she never found her way out of the ditch.
No, and
I thought she was like firmly in the ditch. And then the very end, the home land of the free. The land of the free.
You should do a little
I'm not gonna do a rendition here.
Because you're like land of the free. It's like, well, hold on. I got to hear it in the context of the melody, Ravi.
Well, I was trying to remember which part she screwed up on. Well, that's a wide. It doesn't really narrow it down much which part she screwed up on. But I was like, okay, it's probably about she's like living in the ditch now, but I kind of understand what this is. And then she tried to nail the landing on Land of the Free. But when you try and nail the landing when you are nowhere near, it's like if she was a pilot. And she's like, hey, there's been a lot of turbulence on this flight, but we're going to nail the landing. But then she does not put the landing gear out. That's kind of what happened on Land of the Free.
Yeah. And so a singer like that, you kind of pointed to it. You want someone that's classically a good singer, right?
Yes.
Like, for instance, I always use the example of Kurt Cobain.
Mm-hmm.
Was Kurt Cobain a good singer? Like, could he go to American Idol and win American Idol? Probably not, right?
Yeah, he's not going to be, like, he's very talented.
Yes, like,
and for the type of music he sang, really good voice. But, like, it's a very specific sounding voice.
And I don't want to judge her too harshly.
Yeah, she might be great. She might have great music. It was a tough night for her.
I'm trying to think of, like, what do you compare that to? It sounded like risque, if you know what I mean. And maybe that's my own mind.
Like she was trying to do like the like raspy, sexy voice.
Yeah. But it went weird with it though. You know,
That's not where I went.
like I said, it's probably my problem. You don't want to go in here, man.
That might be a you problem, J Hall.
I am not going to deny that, but it's just I got a weird feeling when I was hearing it.
Yeah.
You know, just a different, like, alien feeling. Like, this is not the way.
It's like the audio version of, like, Uncanny Valley.
Yeah. Like, it's exactly. It's not. It's like AI a little bit.
Yeah.
Like,
maybe she was AI.
Oh, God.
Weren't her initials IA? Maybe they were trying to pull one over on us here.
Dude. Someone that you've never heard of and, like, doesn't have a social media anymore because they scrubbed it.
Yeah.
And, like, that was another thing, too. I'm like,
Ingrid
is this a
something?
troll?
That's all I know.
Yeah, Ingrid. Is this a troll? But then she deletes her social media, and it's like, oh, she feels bad.
I was like, she maybe doesn't want to hear what happened.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Yikes.
I also,
Well, a lot of times in these events, I know, like the Boston Celtics, they like to use the
like
Boston
locals?
Paula Cole, Boston's own. So a lot of times in these events, they use somebody that's kind of local.
Is she Arlington's own?
She could be. I mean, I don't know.
Ingrid Andress.
Okay.
I've never heard of this person.
Yep, and I don't
until
think
yesterday.
Oh my, hey, what a way to.
We may never hear of her again.
No.
Although apparently I heard that she's going to be announcing a big concert soon. So maybe it was all a big stunt.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe it's just all.
That's all this is, man.
Everybody's just trying to be the next Haktua girl, and like not everybody can do it.
Gosh. You know, poor Teoscar Hernandez, poor Bobby Witt.
Nobody cares about what happened.
Here we are,
just trying to figure out what happened and who the hell Ingrid Andress is.
Oh my gosh, what a train wreck!
I don't think I've heard of any of these songs, if I'm being honest.
No, I'm curious to know.
It might just be I don't listen to that type of music, but I don't know.
Well, what's the type of music?
I don't know.
You know, like what is that?
Yeah.
What sings that? What genre could possibly?
I don't know.
Okay, so her Wikipedia says American country music.
All right.
So that would be why I haven't heard of her.
Yeah, I'm not a huge country guy.
I don't do a lot of country.
No. If it's on at a party, it's on fine. But I'm not going to my Spotify and looking at country.
I'm not fine with it really. Like I don't love it.
Do you like leave the party? Like
I'm not gonna leave the party, but I might be like, hey, can we listen to something else?
Yeah, you like kind of.
If you don't love it, leave it.
I'll like make a couple jokes and be like, hey, can we listen to? Yeah.
Oh, we're doing Blake Shelton again. Cool.
Like, oh yeah, no, I mean,
what's the difference between Blake Shelton and Colton Bigaboo? Like they all sound the same.
Colton Bigaboo? I don't know who that is.
No matter what the name is, they all sound the
I do
same.
feel like Colton is definitely the name of a country.
Yeah.
I don't know who.
It's not Bigaboo.
It's not Bigaboo. I'm almost positive.
You know, I could go for some classic, you know.
I mean, just give me some classic rock. You know,
Okay.
I can deal with that. I get not everybody's into my taste in music too, but I do feel like there is common ground that is not country.
Yeah, just no country.
No country.
Can we just no country?
Like No Country for Old Men?
Yeah,
Terrific film.
or young men for any.
Terrific film.
Yeah, it's
Very
one
good.
of my favorites for sure.
Very good.
2007, the Coen brothers.
That's right.
Anton
That
Chigurh.
and There Will Be Blood, one of the best Academy Award classes. Although I will say,
Okay.
Have you seen There Will Be Blood?
Daniel Day-Lewis, baby.
I think it's overrated because
Go on.
I think it's one of the most unintentionally funny movies of all time.
Well, especially the ending. I mean, geez.
I drink your milkshake. Like the whole drink it up. like half of his lines are hilarious.
Yeah, it gets a little bonkers.
It's like pretty absurd.
Like it's a pretty big tonal change at the end there.
Yes.
I don't know if we're gonna do spoilers.
I mean, it's been 17 years. I think we're all right.
A bowling pin and
Yeah.
someone's noggin.
Yeah.
Okay.
He beats Paul Dano to death with a bowling pin,
And
which is objectively funny.
it's if you really
Especially
think about
after he talks about drinking his milkshake.
it, like out of context, that'd be something like,
It's
what
hilarious.
is going on?
It's one of the strangest, most over-the-top movies I've ever seen.
It's like the Ingrid Andress of movie endings. Like what?
You're like, what? Yeah, when she was trying
Okay.
to, it's like him beating Paul Dano to death with a bowling pin is her trying to land of the free. That's her trying to land the plane on Land of the Free. And you're just like, wait, I thought we might like crash land safe in the Hudson here, and we did not.
It's hard to imagine a different ending for that movie. Now that ending happened, it's like that had to be the ending, right?
I get it.
Like, how else do you end that movie?
Well, right, because of how over the top it'd been the whole time. But I just every once in a while I just think to myself, I abandoned my child.
Yeah. I mean, that was his Oscar moment, though.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Apparently, give me the blood, Lord.
Give me the blood, Lord, and let me get away. That was the moment that they showed. I think I probably didn't watch the Oscars in 2007.
How old are you in 2007?
I was 16. Yeah.
I'm not that much older than you.
Like, I'm a movie buff and everything. I would like to think so.
Yeah.
I know Shane's a really good movie knowledgeable person.
He's got an interesting wheelhouse.
How do you?
Come on, Shane.
How does Shane feel about There Will Be Blood?
Have you seen that movie, Shane?
I have not seen that movie.
See,
I do like Daniel Day-Lewis. I like Last of the Mohicans is a great movie.
He's got like a very specific like sweet spot. So there's some stuff that he hasn't seen.
Okay, I know this is a sports show.
It's July. It's not really.
We could talk about how the home run derby needs to be cut off. Like an hour just needs to be lopped off there.
Yeah, it's got to be a 2-hour max. There needs to be a time limit on that thing.
Okay.
Also, I feel like the rules are way too complicated.
Thank you. Throw the ball.
Hit the ball.
And if you attempt to swing, either it's a home run or it's an out.
Or it's not a home run.
Why am I seeing these bonus
Yeah, I don't know what the bonuses are.
With like 4 outs.
But there's 3, unless you hit one super far, and then there's 4.
Dumb.
Doesn't make any sense.
Like, why are we trying to – like, the most simple, like, primitive caveman thing in sports.
They've made it so complicated.
I hit home run ball long. Why are we trying to make it all crazy?
I don't know. I don't understand the point. I don't know why. I don't know if they're trying to distract us from the fact that, like, there's no, like, real – like, there were some good young players last night.
Yeah.
But there's no real stars in it a lot of the time. I mean –
it's true. I mean, look.
It's not quite as bad as, like, the dunk contest is.
Yeah, the dunk contest is just a bunch of randos.
Occasionally you still – like, I think not that long ago – like Aaron Judge won one. I think, it's going a ways back now. I think Giancarlo Stanton won one. So, like, you still have some, although they were both younger when they did it. Like, you still have some stars that will show up to this thing. Like, I think Vladdy won it last year, which I don't know if he's a star or not. He's fine.
He's good.
Yeah, he's fine. He's fine.
And you got Pete Alonso out there who's won it. Like,
who's fine. I think he's
better, not a superstar.
He's better at home run derbies than he is at real baseball.
Oh, for sure.
Which is fine.
He's a one-trick pony.
But like Bobby Wood Jr. is going to be a really good player, but he's also going to stop doing home run derbies. And so I think they're trying to distract you from the fact that, that you're not getting kind of the cream of the crop here.
So the home run derby is like the dunk contest in that way.
It really is.
Which
is a bummer because I used to really like both of them.
2000.
Yeah.
Dunk contest.
Is that the Vince Carter?
Vince Carter.
Yeah.
Like the height of Vince. That was Vince's.
Yeah.
Like
that was
Vinsanity.
Like, coming out party to the country.
And you don't like, who won the dunk contest last year?
No earthly idea.
You know what I mean?
I remember a handful of ones over the course of the years. Like Zach LaVine won one his dunks were good.
He jumps high.
He does jump very high.
He does.
Well, not anymore. He's had like 18 ACL surgeries.
Damn.
But he used to jump very high. The Dwight Howard one where he jumps over with the Superman cape. That's a famous one.
Yeah.
But that's 15 years ago, 12 years ago now.
And look, all apologies to Teoscar Hernandez.
Nice player.
I'm sure he's got a nice, like 340 on-base percentage or something like that. But he's not a dude that next year we're going to go, oh, yeah, Teoscar won. Again, we're going to probably go back to the national anthem.
It's going to be like, I'm sorry, who? You overestimated his on-base percentage, by the way.
Oh, gosh.
It's 340 is not even that good. It is.
That's why I was trying to do like kind of a.
It is below that.
Oh, what are we talking?
You want to guess? Career or this year?
So for this year, I will say 312.
327 this year.
Okay.
Career, you're pretty close. 318.
Okay. How old is he?
You know who he would not play for?
Who?
The Moneyball A's, baby.
Yeah.
Billy
Bean.
He is 23 years old.
No,
So he's got some time. He's got some time. He's a youngin.
Yeah, he could become a superstar.
He's a youngin, although he has been, let's see. Yeah, okay. He's been playing for a minute, though.
Yeah.
Wait, no, he's not 23. He got drafted, or he came in the league at 23. He's 31. I was off a little bit there. Well, so I'm on Baseball Reference here.
Love Baseball Reference.
I love Baseball Reference.
Love it.
But I'm looking, and I just look.
You have to know how to read it.
I'm looking for the first number, and I skipped right over born and went to debut. Oh, he debuted on my birthday. Good for you, Teoscar Hernandez.
There you go.
At 23 years old. He is currently 31, so he does not have time. This is who he is. This is who he is.
Listen, it's baked in.
This is part of the DNA.
Like his 320 whatever OBP is his apex right now.
He did have 2 years above at 340 or higher.
Hey.
But he's at 318 for his career, so not great.
Did he get a Mickey Mouse ring in 2020 with the Doyers?
No, he just signed with the Dodgers this year. He was a what's the Blue Jay? There you go.
Oh, okay.
Blue Jay in
that's
2020. Right. That's because Vladdy was wearing the jersey.
Yeah.
And he was helping him out because they were buddies from their Toronto days.
That's fine.
When they were bebopping around Canada.
Bebopping around Canada.
What's the Canadians?
So
yeah.
Did Vlad make it this year?
He didn't play this year, or he didn't participate in the Derby this year.
No, but is he an All-Star this year?
That's a good question. I would imagine. Otherwise, I don't know why he was there.
Because look, he's a guy. He's the son of one of my favorite players. I love me some Vladimir Guerrero.
One of the best bad ball hitters of all time.
If you can hit a bounced ball, like you're instantly one of my dudes.
One of the best bad ball hitters of all time.
I will die on your hill. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, go Oppo Taco with it.
I do.
No gloves.
I do it. He did have like the Moises Alou look with the no gloves, and he's just got the
maybe some tape around.
Got the tape around the fingers.
That's right.
Is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. an All-Star?
You Google like my students do. You literally say is da 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 da.
Guerrero's making his 4th consecutive All-Star appearance. He is an All-Star. Congrats, Vlad Guerrero Jr.
So it's safe to say he's a superstar.
TK says Mac McClung is a good example of what we're talking about here.
Mac McClung, Texas Tech.
Yeah. Now he's just bouncing around the G League and doing dunk contests.
Yeah. He's doing dunk contests.
Yeah, they let him in the dunk contest because he's like a YouTube sensation.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I remember when he was coming out of high school, he was this big. He had these crazy highlight tapes because he's like 6'2". He's not that tall.
No.
And he just hammers on people. And it was a big deal at Georgetown got him, and I was like, he's a great dunker. I don't think he's very good at basketball, and he's not.
So, like, do we say Zach LaVine? Like,
no, he's not.
He's
not as good as Zach LaVine.
Okay.
Zach LaVine's better than any. At the time that Zach LaVine won the dunk contest, probably similar skill set wise, but not. Zach always had higher upside. Mac's a little dude.
I guess that's why he's in the NBA and not in the G League.
Yeah, and he's gotten he's got some big contracts.
Yeah.
Like Mac McClung's never getting like a max deal. That's not
Mac
happening.
McClung is probably Teoscar Hernandez. Like he's 31. Right.
He's getting up there. He was in college for a long time.
Right. He was one of those dudes that
he just kept hanging around.
Got drafted at like 26 or something.
Just like Counting Crows, man, just hanging around.
Yeah, that's right.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to Mitch Sherman of The Athletic. We will catch up with Mitch for a few minutes here as he moved today as he's going on vacation, as many of us should and will. We will be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Now, gas station coffee enthusiast and Nebraska writer for The Athletic, Mitch Sherman.
It's great to see you. It's been since a cold day in the corner of Memorial Stadium.
Mitch Sherman.
I wrote that down because I'm going to use it in life.
Mitch Sherman.
It's not something that you generally hear, and it's certainly not something that you see put into action.
Mitch Sherman.
It's a lot more rare than you might think that they actually say it in the way that he says it and then go do it.
Here is Mitch Sherman.
Welcome back into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi, Lulla. Jared Hall here with me. We're joined now by Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, what's going on, man?
Morning, guys. What's up? How are you?
Oh, not too much.
Solid.
Just trying to keep this thing on the rails early this morning. And, Mitch, so you're a big baseball guy. I have to ask, what level of interest do you have, I guess not just in the home run derby, but in, the All-Star weekend in general? Because, when I was younger, I loved it. I was obsessed with it. And now I find it very difficult to find reasons to care.
I like that the draft is now incorporated. So I enjoyed watching the first round of the draft. I think if you are in touch with college baseball, and we just saw the College World Series here last month, and that's always the case for people in Omaha, then there's a reason to watch the draft. And as a Royals fan, I was excited to see Jack Caglione go to Kansas City. And that was for me, that's probably going to be the most enjoyable part of the whole event in Arlington, is that like 4th, 5th, 6th pick time when I was like, oh, the Royals might get Caglione here. Like I thought he was going to go 3rd or 4th, and he didn't. And that to me is really cool. You know, no different than an NFL fan watching their team about to draft a great player. You can see that guy in the big leagues when you watch him in the College World Series and project him as a Gold Glove first baseman who hits 35 home runs a season. So that was cool. I'm glad that they added that to the All-Star festivities. The Home Run Derby was I actually fell asleep on the couch watching some of it, and that was with Bobby Witt Jr. making a run, and it got really exciting at the end. Again, specifically speaking, as a Royals fan,
yeah,
I was glued to the TV in the last round when he was trying to win $1 million. But normally in the Home Run Derby, I don't know what they've done to it, but it just does not. It's too long. The each round is too long, and tonight with the game, again, I think it's whether you have a connection to a team or players, because I want to see Bobby, I want to see Salvi, I want to see Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo. So that part of it, I'm excited about. But anything else having to do with the whole thing, I don't care about the stupid home field advantage for the World Series. Take that away. It's not how they should decide it. Everything else is, is kind of a snooze.
Just so many unnecessary rules and regulations, and it's like we were talking earlier, it's just, can we just throw the ball? If you don't hit a home run, it's an out. Mm-hmm. And then you can move on to the next guy. And I get you have to make this kind of an event and you have to make it all fancy. It's just
timeouts.
And all the time. And you had the cool little Scooby-Doo celebration, and that's a young guy doing Scooby-Doo stuff, which is a little weird. But I mean, I get you have to make it entertaining and all that, but it's just, can we make it like 2 hours at most, for God's sake?
I think it would be fun to be there. I think that watching on TV a player hit a ball 440 feet is not the same as doing it in person. And if it's in a game and you're watching it on TV, then it's cool. But batting practice, like being there and actually seeing the physicality of that would be exciting to me. I think I would enjoy the home. Although even that, it would lose some of its. It would get repetitive to see it over and over. But on TV, it's not a great TV event unless you have a direct connection to one of the players.
Well, maybe this is a one-off, and so I'm, over nostalgizing it or whatever. But I'm thinking about, what was it, 99 in Fenway, and you got like Mark McGwire hitting shots onto the Boston Turnpike, and that was incredible television, right? Yeah. Maybe it's because I was 12 years old, but it was incredible TV, and it's maybe they can't recreate that. Maybe it was the steroids. Maybe that's just not something that you can recapture again. But at one time, it was incredible television.
He could have. They should have just leaned into that and had him actually take some steroids right when he was in the on deck circle. And
listen, I'll be willing to sit through a 3-hour home run derby if that's one of the prerequisites.
If it's steroids, if it's a steroid derby,
you must take steroids, or you're not allowed.
Yeah, there were some great ones. I remember Josh Hamilton.
Yeah, that one was incredible.
500-foot home runs. And did Shohei ever? Did he ever Didn't he do a derby a couple years ago?
One, and he had an incredible. He didn't end up winning a lot. Like Josh Hamilton didn't end up winning either. But he had an incredible first round, I think. And so Shohei was kind of a, so they've had moments. It's just, I don't know. It gets gotten so convoluted. I just don't even understand what we're doing.
And some of the players, great hitters, throughout that thing. But and there's injuries and things like that prevent guys like Bryce Harper and Mike Trout and Aaron Judge. You don't want to do it if you're those guys, and because you've been down that road before and whatever. It's beneath them to try to win $1 million, I guess. But it's not. Witt probably won't do it again because he's becoming a superstar in the sport. Same thing with Gunnar Henderson, who flamed out last night, but. It's not the absolute top players in the sport. Now, Jose Ramirez was in it, and he's a great player, but you're not talking about like the 10 best power hitters in the game.
Mitch, we should probably ask you about Nebraska before we get you out of here. But so they brought in a kind of the first of these unlimited staff positions in Mosey over the weekend. I'm curious, like, what impact do you think, whether it's Mosey, obviously he's got connections to the Kansas City area, or in general, like what impact do you think Nebraska might be able to get from these types of hires?
Yeah, it's interesting. In sitting down, I sat down with Troy Dannon last Thursday, and this was one of the subjects we talked about. One of the primary subjects we talked about. All anybody wanted to pull out of that interview was the 3 minutes we spent talking about how grass is coming to Memorial Stadium in like 3 years. And I knew that would be the case. But one of the things we talked about was the impact for Nebraska of the unlimited staff positions. And of course, Nebraska has had analysts on staff for a while and was actually part of an investigation during the Scott Frost years that Nebraska had analysts who were coaching, and now it's legal. So now the NCAA, the Division I Council, has said, go ahead, have your analysts coach. We know they were pretty much doing that anyway, so you can pay them more. You could pay them more before, but what was the justification if they technically could not coach? Now they can coach, and you can go get a guy like Jamar Mosey, who was a longtime high school coach in Kansas City, successful high school coach, and had taken a position at UCF for Gus Malzahn just this spring before that rule was passed. And so now the rule's passed, and all of a sudden these positions are going to rise in prominence, and he comes to Nebraska. So I'll be interested to see like what his role is. Nebraska doesn't like make big announcements about analyst hires. They do in the case of John Butler, the secondary coach. But for an analyst, you more or less just find out because he announced it on social media. And it's interesting on a number of levels. One, because he's a good coach, like I said. Two, because he's got that Kansas City connection, and you wonder if maybe that can open some doors for Nebraska and maybe getting some players on campus from the Kansas City area. Just him making a call to a coach that he knows and say, you should come to Matt Rule's camp. Like, this place is pretty special, whatever. I mean, there's a ton of competition for recruiting in the Kansas City area, and Nebraska wants to do a better job with that. Having a former high school coach who grew up right there and is a football name in Kansas City, it's not going to hurt. And then three, his son, Isaiah Mosey, is a 4-star wide receiver in this class, this 25 class, who's committed to Oregon. So his recruiting all of a sudden got more interesting and something to follow for Nebraska.
Mitch, we appreciate the time as always. Enjoy your vacation, your last little time to relax before we get going on football. So enjoy that, and we appreciate you as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
That's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Good stuff there from Mitch. A little abbreviated today to accommodate our schedule and his, so we appreciate him doing that. We will be back to wrap up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities.
We will be back. be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Do that Scooby-Doo impression. Yeah, get,
all right. Raggy.
Perfect.
Game's over.
Oh,
he's
gotta go. Get legs.
Damn.
Get legs. Oh, no.
Oscar Hernandez is your 2024 T-Mobile Home Run Derby champ.
Mama got her a pair of new shoes right there with that one.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's Jared Hall. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage, live at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We got TK on the line giving us a call. If you want to call us, it's 888-638-4876. What's up, TK?
Good morning, fellas. How we doing?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Oh, another damn paradise.
Yeah?
I see that the label has changed the name to Fools and Fools. You got different people all week.
Yeah, we do. We got the DBs out coaching the high
What's
school
up,
kids.
brother?
Up.
Coaching the high school kids.
Okay, so I got a question about Mosey.
Okay.
Less about Mosey, but we already saw this at the beginning with Rule, with Simpson, who was a prolific coach in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
We have this with Mosey now. I'm sure there's more high school coaches on this staff, and I just don't know them off the top of my head. Where do you guys want Matt Rule to pick up a high school coach from? Like what geographical area?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. So the first thing that came off the top of my head, because he's got the Texas connections already, so I'm not too worried about that. Florida's obviously a good spot.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I went California.
Okay.
Like I think I'd like a Southern California. I mean, with the Pac-12 schools joining, you're going to have a little bit, I think, more of a tie out to that part of the country, and it does feel like half of the quarterbacks in Division I come from Southern California.
Sure.
So I wouldn't hate just having.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, like I wouldn't hate having a connection out there. That's the first thing that came to my head. Like obviously anywhere in the Southeast would be great. Like Georgia, specifically Georgia, I think.
It's always Georgia. They freaking churn them out.
Or somewhere from like the DMV, the Virginia, Maryland area is like a super talent-rich area.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, like New Jersey. Like I know Matt Rule has New Jersey connections, but like that New Jersey area, always known for their hard-nosed kind of crazy dudes that we used to have. from Jersey.
Had a couple of those.
Had a couple. Helped us win some natties.
Yeah.
You know, you could argue with how they did it, but they did it. So I don't know. So Jersey,
no arguing.
That's right.
So Jared wants the jersey. What's your answer, TK?
So I had two. One of them was Georgia. You got to poach somebody off that Buford staff.
Yeah.
If you're going to keep going to the well, you got to get somebody from Buford. And then the other one is somebody from Las Vegas.
Ooh.
Okay.
Try and get a bigger in with those
guy?
Bishop Gorman guys.
Give me some more Tyjon Lindsay's. That's what I need.
You want another Bishop Gorman guy. Listen, I get it. If you can get somebody from Bishop Gorman, that's great. I think, I kind of struggle with Vegas just because outside of that program, I just don't know how much it gets you. Which that's a great program to be in with. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But the state in general, you're not getting a ton.
They play a lot of the really good teams in the surrounding states.
Yeah,
so, like,
fair.
even though Tony Futanoi, who you guys had on your show, which is a great interview, I think their team plays Bishop Gorman. He's from Utah.
Yeah.
So
I would I think another like talent-rich area that I don't think is really talked about a lot, and for good reason, because you have Ohio State there. And so could you find an Ohio connection, Michigan kind of
Pennsylvania maybe?
Like
there's a lot of really good players in Pennsylvania.
So somewhere like you're kind of saying kind of that northeast kind of area. Some people might call, Michigan and Ohio State the Midwest. Some people would argue that.
I would call Ohio and Pennsylvania like the Mid-Atlantic, like somewhere in there is I think it would be a good that's a good call. Ohio and Pennsylvania have a ton of talent.
Yeah. And that's a highly contested area. Go look at the top 10 people recruits out of Pennsylvania this year. Not a single one of them is going to Penn State.
James Franklin?
Got a James Franklin problem.
What's going on? I don't know. Some people are questioning James Franklin, and nobody's going to benefit more from no divisions than Penn State, because now they don't have to really.
Yeah, no, they don't have to deal with Ohio State and Michigan. TK, we appreciate the call, buddy.
I appreciate it, guys. Have a great day.
You too. My buddy texts me, Tim he goes, hey, hire me on staff. He's 2 miles from IMG Academy in Florida. So let's get a little
seriously.
Yeah.
Okay.
He lives down there. He's a stand-up comic.
Is he really?
Yeah. Good dude.
Stand-up comic.
Yeah.
That's a job.
Good. He's a fundraising comic. So like people hire him for their fundraisers.
Okay.
It's a better way to make a living than like going on the road 300 nights a year.
Well, I was gonna say, is he like that prototypical like living in my van?
No, he's got he's got like a family and is not homeless, so that's good.
That's good.
Yeah,
good for him.
Yeah.
And he is listening right now.
He is. Yeah. He just texted me.
Like, who would you say is like his main influences are?
I don't know who his influences are, but he's what he calls a clean comic. So he's not like swearing or anything. So not like not like Dave Chappelle or anybody like that.
Okay.
There's a guy I think named Brian Regan that's kind of like that. It's kind of like observational and like fairly clean. Just kind of like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah, you don't need to be dirty to be funny.
No, you don't have to be.
It helps sometimes.
I particularly enjoy it, but no, I think he's funny. He's a funny guy.
Okay, good. I like that.
Am I a funny guy? You laughing at
me?
Yeah.
What, like a clown? I amuse you?
No, I imagine though with the unlimited assistant spots now that they might end up with guys from all these places.
Yeah, and talking about unlimited coaches, and I think of how Matt Rule will tackle this, because I think right now where we sit, we do trust in Matt Rule. Okay, on our podcast we have what's called Timmer, trust in Matt Rule. I Timmer. Okay, but when it comes to making all of these hires, how will he handle that? Because we know that he's a very meticulous guy. He is pretty hands-on.
Yeah.
And so do we anticipate getting like 20 new Twitter notifications like, hey, we just hired this guy and this guy, 20.
I heard a number earlier. If you had to guess how many football staffers they are currently, so you got your 10 assistants.
Yeah.
11 now with Mosey. If you had to guess how many
there
are staffers, support staff, so that's everybody. This is
right.
What would you guess that number is?
Am I crazy to think? Are we in the 60s, 70s?
77.
77. Okay.
77 or 78 is the number I was told.
Okay.
I didn't go and count them up. I'm taking whoever's word for it. I don't remember who I heard it from.
That sounds reasonable.
But that's a big number already,
yeah.
right? So my point is, I don't think managing a large football staff is going to concern him at all.
Right.
I think he's going to do whatever is whatever he feels is necessary to give Nebraska an advantage. And if he feels one of the things that can give Nebraska an advantage is the fact that it's like, hey, we can go out and we're happy to pay these guys to be coaches, then we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think the biggest, because Amazing Daniel brought this up yesterday when we were talking about these extra coaching positions and stuff. And he's like, at what point does it become like too many cooks in the kitchen? Which is a fair question.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you this number, though. What's the size of the NFL roster?
I do not know.
53.
Okay. 53.
So you're talking, Nebraska's got 3 times that many guys right now, right?
Got to
So
babysit.
If you're talking about, okay, you want to include practice squad and whatever, okay, let's say it's double. It's at the very least double the size of an NFL roster. Most NFL staffs have like 20-ish coaches. So you're talking about half the roster with double the amount of coaches. So I think it's a while before we get to the too many cooks in the kitchen pot.
That's fair. That's fair.
That number does exist, for sure. At some point, it does exist. And I think that number exists in correlation with how well your head coach manages the coaching staff. So for some people, that number is lower than it would be for others. Not really concerned about that with Matt Rule.
You know, and with this new unlimited coach rule, for Coach Rule, if this would have happened 3 years ago,
okay,
would we, like, of course, we were all on the Scott Frost train, okay? But imagine if this rule had come down 3-4 years ago, we probably wouldn't be as ecstatic
100%.
about it. Because right now, we feel like Matt Rule has a good handle on his staff. He hires people that he feels he can groom to the next level.
Well, not just that, but also to replace guys from the main coaching staff, from the core 10. I don't know what else to call them. Like, you have to make some distinction, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
From the core 10 and elevate the guys that he's bringing into those spots, right? Like, we saw it with the tight end spot last year to a certain extent. We saw it, he's talked about it with, hey, when Tony White leaves, I've got a couple guys on staff where there's Terrence Knight and Rob Dvorak, and prior Evan Cooper and now John Butler. That, I mean, there's 3 guys that'd be like, yeah, I could see any one of those guys being defensive coordinator and not being a problem. So, like, I think he's going to almost use these spots as like a farm system for his own coaches.
Yeah.
And some of them are going to go off other places, yeah, but he's going to use it to develop so that he doesn't have to go out and be like, oh, well, we lost Evan Cooper unexpectedly. We got to go find a guy, right? Like,
yeah, that's true.
I think he's going to use it as a farm system.
Yeah, and again, with Matt Rule,
we trust
I would
it.
rather have it under him
if it was
than some of the other guys that we've had.
If it was almost anybody else we've had, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back.
We know who we are. We know who we are. Athletes will experience. We know who we
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We know who we are. In the Southeastern Conference, we're the one conference at this level where the name still means something. The southeastern part of the United States, where when we expanded, we actually restored historic rivalries while adding only 100 miles to the longest campus-to-campus trip our student athletes will experience.
Nothing says southeastern part of the United States like Oklahoma.
That's right.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's Jared Hall from the No Block, No Rock podcast with me this morning. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage at the beautiful venue at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill.
It is beautiful.
That was Greg Sankey at SEC Media Days. What I love about Greg Sankey is even when he says things that I agree with, he still can't help but being a sanctimonious SEC homer, which is his job. I get it. That is his job.
He's got to go to bat.
He's got to represent the brand.
That's right.
But I'm just saying, it still means something. Everybody's in the Southeast, just like Oklahoma, who's in the smack dab middle of the country.
With the Southeastern Conference, southeastern part of the United States.
I get what he's saying. I get what he's saying with the campus trip, and it's they really didn't. It's not like Cal playing in the ACC, right? Like I get it. I get that part of it. But let's not pretend like anybody in their right mind is like, yep, Oklahoma, southeastern part of the country.
No, but I will say, He's talking about preserving rivalries.
That's true. I like that.
And I'm like, dang, that sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's the college football that I miss.
Texas A&M.
And I know you and Elijah kind of got into it yesterday about how college football should look and the new system.
How far of a departure we are from what a lot of people are nostalgic for.
Yeah.
That's, I think, where – and that's – listen, Elijah and I were talking a lot about, like, promotion and relegation yesterday, and I am not under any delusions that that's ever going to happen. My point really was, like, we are so far removed from the nostalgia of what we thought college football was and what made us love college football that we shouldn't allow that to limit the options to make it better now, right? Because it's gone. It is poof, disappeared, like the rabbit is out of the hat. It doesn't exist anymore.
People are holding on
to something that doesn't exist.
Right. And look,
if you're allowing that thing that doesn't exist anymore to limit you from perhaps, and I'm not saying if that's promotion, relegation, or just in general, right?
Yeah.
Like, if that's limiting you from making the best decisions for your sport, that's stupid.
If you're letting it hinder you.
Yes.
And there is like a part of me, Ravi, that thinks
big hinder guy, huh?
A big hinder.
Weird.
Lives up on our girl. Great reference. I'm not going to sing that song to you. I'm not.
Don't do it.
Like, there is a part of me, Ravi, that maybe it is the nostalgic side of me.
It is.
And is there a possibility, right? We just lose our way so much that we just kind of circle back and go, why don't we just kind of go back to the old Big Eight?
Like regional conferences.
I feel like, and maybe I'm crazy for thinking this, maybe in 20 years or so, we just go back to, why did we ever stray away from this? And yeah, I know, TV and money.
So what you're advocating for, speaking of TV, is what we've seen happen with television products, right? Everybody had cable, right? Everybody's like, oh, cable's the worst. Let's get rid of cable. We're going to do streaming now. Now you have 8 million different streaming services, and they're like, hey, there's too many streaming services. I don't want to do this a la carte thing anymore. Why don't you bundle them together for me again? Guess what that is? That's just cable over the internet now. It's just streaming cable. That's all it is. You're bundling, which is fine. But my point is, it could happen.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because there's a world, right, where you're going, let's say the SEC and the Big Ten decide, you know what? We're going to do our own thing. Super League time. We got 48 teams. Well, guess what? You can't have anything that resembles a round robin type of schedule with that, right?
Insanity.
So what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to break it up into, you probably call them divisions, right? But what does the NFL do? You've got regional divisions. That could end up looking a lot like these traditional conferences. Now, the context of it's going to be very, very different, right?
Yeah.
You'd have the old Big Eight in the context of a Super League, and you have to win the Big Eight to go to the playoff and whatever. It's going to still be very different, but you could regain at least some of the geographic and regional rivalries that you used to have. That's on the table, I think.
Yeah, and that's all I'm really advocating for is just, can we have some sense of the Greg Sankey regionality thing?
Can I ask a question about regionality, though?
Okay.
Why does it matter?
I think
is it better for Texas to play SMU, or is it better for Texas to play Alabama? For the sport, for television, for fans, for anybody, is it better for anybody for Texas to play SMU than it is for Texas to play Alabama?
It's good for Texas.
Yeah, because they're going to lose to Alabama.
Right.
But I mean, for the sport in general.
There's a part of me that's like, when Nebraska would play Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not regionality.
No, it's not.
But when Nebraska stopped playing Texas, it was viewed as a negative thing because guess what? Now you lost that recruiting base there that you had kind of established. But then there is a part of me that I do like the bragging rights.
But it's not a regional thing then. Like Nebraska, Texas isn't regional.
No.
Like, would you rather Nebraska be playing Iowa State or Ohio State? I get wins and losses.
Listen.
But right, like, or you're talking about, would you rather them be playing Kansas State or Michigan. Like, for the sake of the brand of college football.
Yeah.
Forget Nebraska's wins and losses. For the brand of college football, it's a no-brainer.
I think that's part of the problem is I am jaded.
Yeah, because Nebraska's been getting their tail kicked in
they
the Big Ten
stink
for the last decade.
Because you're talking about this relegation system. Nebraska would have been relegated.
Yeah.
And they would be playing.
But maybe we wouldn't have to suffer through so many inept people. Like, when relegation's on the table, you got to move, baby.
That is true. It gives you a sense of urgency.
Yes. It
to
does.
like, hey, we got to change something up.
Yeah, we got to go.
Yeah, so we're not in this.
It's time to go.
The D-Gen League. I've had enough being a D-Gen.
But that's kind of like, regionality is not like, that was because of very practical travel purposes. We have to play the people close to us because our travel accommodations cannot really afford anything else.
Maybe I'm just thinking of the.
Now you got, I mean, like, all these teams are going to be chartering planes and stuff. Now, like, what? Just go fly and play whoever you want to play.
I'm thinking of the student athlete.
No, you're
okay.
Not.
Yes,
no,
I am.
No,
they have
not.
to go to class.
You don't care.
I do not care.
You know what? You know how people go to class now? It's over the internet. The internet's everywhere, bud.
It's in Texas.
It's
in Oklahoma.
It is in Texas.
It's in Ames, Iowa.
Allegedly. I don't know about those Iowa folks sometimes.
Yeah, they're a little podunk.
They might be a little behind the times. But that, like, the reason regional conferences existed is because you were just playing the people near you. It's like why people go, like, in school districts. They go to the school that's near them.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Unless you're out there, you know, like, recruiting in high school or whatever. But, like, for the most part, like, when you go to elementary school, you're not like that, but it's a practical travel purpose. It's not like, this is the best elementary school. It's like, no, this is the one I live next to.
You know, Ravi, when I mentioned the Big 8.
Yeah.
As a Nebraska fan.
Yep.
Of course I want that.
You're not even old enough to remember the Big 8.
Oh, hey,
How old are you in 1996?
I was 5.
Yeah, you don't remember the Big 8.
Hey.
I barely remember the Big 8.
I have remnant in my mind, okay? I have little twinkles of remembrance, okay?
I think that's other stuff floating around in there.
Delusion. No, but like, as a Nebraska fan, that's when they were at their best.
Sure, yeah.
And so it's like, I want to go back to that.
You want to go back?
I need that.
You want to go back to them being their best, though. You don't care about the Big 8.
And look, here's the thing: if we go back to the Big 8, guess what? Kleiman's going to kick our butt.
Yeah.
Leipold's probably going to kick our butt.
I mean, right? You know? If they'd been in the Big 8 this whole time, these other teams would have beat them. It's not like the Big 10 West was a juggernaut.
You're not wrong.
Like, it's not like the Big 10 West basically was the Big 8, and Nebraska couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
You don't miss the Big 8. You miss Nebraska being good, which is fine. I miss it too. But that's not like we attach ourselves to these things that aren't actually what we miss, right? We don't miss playing Iowa State and a terrible Kansas and a terrible Kansas State. We don't miss playing those teams. And then you get like maybe 1 or 2 games a year against Oklahoma and then whatever other random team decides to be good that year.
Yeah.
You don't miss that. You miss Nebraska being good. That's it. If Nebraska had been good in the Big 10, you would love the Big 10.
You got me.
Nebraska had been, I mean, I don't have any problems with the Big 12. Like, they were pretty good most of the time they're in the Big 12. Right? Like,
yeah.
That's not what it is. It's just that they've been bad.
That's all it boils down to.
It really is.
Like, my thing is,
it's the
whatever system college football goes to, here's my question.
Can Nebraska be good?
Will it help Nebraska?
And that's why people are mad about the promotion relegation thing we were talking about yesterday.
Because
Nebraska would have been relegated.
Yes.
That's the only reason. Right. If Nebraska was playing like Bama right now, it'd be like, yeah, bring it on. Get these bums
relegate those.
Get these bums out of here. Why are they taking my money when they're not any good? Get them out. But that's not where we're at right now.
That's true, man. Whatever helps Nebraska in the end.
Which I get it. Like, I get it. That's fine. I'm on that same page too. But, like, we have to be able to separate the thing we actually miss from the thing that we think we miss. Because sometimes we just won't say the thing out loud. It's like, yeah, I just want Nebraska to be good again, and that's the last time they were good.
And people that I don't think people are really mad about, like, NIL anymore. But for those people that were mad about it, the question is, will it help Nebraska? And so far, in this very short window that we've had so far with NIL, it really hasn't. However,
it can.
With this quarterback that we've gotten,
it can.
I think that certainly played a part in bringing him into the fold.
Well, and I
like NIL now.
Here's the other thing, right? the reason the NIL hasn't helped Nebraska get better to this point is because the good players want to go places to win.
That's all
right?
it boils down to.
So let's say if Nebraska has a good season this year, knock on wood, pray to our Lord and Savior Dylan Raiola, right? Like
he walks on water, like you say.
He might. You don't know.
You've
never seen it. You've never seen him sing.
Right.
But like, let's say Nebraska has a good year. Call 8 wins. Let's say they have a good year, right? Yeah. I think that's on the table. I think that would be a good year. I think people would be happy. You know how many more people are going to be interested in coming to Nebraska after you get proof of concept that's like, oh, yep, they can do it.
Yes.
Right? It's always, for the last, that's why recruiting fell off with Frost. That's why NIL didn't matter as much as it could have, is because it's like, okay, yeah, you've got the money and that's cool and you've got the facilities and whatever, but when are you going to start winning games? Right? Because I know that people want to get all up in arms about, all kids these days and whatever, right? These kids still want to win. You know why? Because losing is not fun.
Losing is so draining.
It's not fun.
In your your personal life suffers.
Yes.
Because it's just torture.
Well, especially at a place like Nebraska where people do care. You can go other places and be bad and be anonymous. That's not happening at Nebraska. No. You think Jeff Sims had a good time last year?
Oh, man.
No.
And I don't even think we were particularly mean to him. But do you think he had a good time?
We weren't mean. We were making observations.
Yeah, it's like, if you could hold on to the football, bud, that would be fantastic.
I think we have talked about this before, Ravi, is despite the losing, we care. And is that a detriment that we care so dang much? Because it's like an avalanche. When one bad thing happens, and look, people are on social media, and Twitter's not real life, okay?
I don't know if that's true.
People like to say that to make themselves feel better. I don't know. But it just piles on.
It does.
And it takes a different person.
It escalates.
It takes a different person, man, to
There's a level of pressure there. But here's the thing. If you're afraid of that pressure, that's a loser mentality.
Don't come here.
It is. Because anywhere you go that matters, you're going to have that pressure, right? You think he's going to Georgia and there's not going to be any pressure? Those people are nuts, man.
Whenever people give Nebraska fans crap, I'm like, imagine if you played for Tennessee.
Oh, yeah. Tennessee fans.
Oh, my God.
Tennessee hired a coach and their fans revolted.
They rioted.
And they're like, just kidding. We're not hiring that coach. They reversed a hiring decision.
They are psycho.
That's a real thing that happened at Tennessee.
Yes.
People at Alabama for the last 3 years have been like, I think Nick Saban's lost his fastball.
Yep.
He's the greatest coach of all time. They're losing one game every year, maybe.
Kirby's our dad now.
And they're like, we've lost to Georgia twice in a row.
Yeah.
Look at Ohio State.
Ryan Day should be fired.
If Ryan Day loses to Michigan this year, he's
fired.
Done.
He's done.
He's gone.
His goose is cooked if he loses to Michigan this year.
And you think Nebraska fans are bad?
I know.
That's what I mean. Yes, there is a lot of pressure here at Nebraska because we care.
Yeah.
But if that deters you from coming to Nebraska, you're a loser. I'm sorry, you are.
Yeah.
Because any place where you're going to play that matters, you're going to have that, if not more. You think there's no pressure in the NFL? Have you seen
the most watched sport in the freaking universe?
Have you seen the DMs and Twitter messages these guys get when something bad happens to somebody's fantasy team? Nebraska fans are tame.
Yeah.
We're passionate, but in general, very kind.
You bring up the Tennessee thing. When have our fans ever done anything wrong?
We got on board with Mike Riley, for God's sake. It took a couple days, but we got there.
Dude,
what's that?
Greg Schiano's actually a good coach.
Yes.
And Tennessee's like, nope, not for us.
Well, look, and if you ask Tennessee fans, they're going to point back to the Penn State thing.
Yeah, that's not what it was about.
It's
they didn't think it was good enough.
That's all it boils down to.
Literally
right? It's all
wins.
wins. And even though Greg Schiano is a decent coach, and Rutgers should be looking decent this year, Tennessee fans said no, and I'm going to graffiti everything.
Yeah.
I'm going to tip over this van.
They literally had a riot until they're like, just kidding, that's not who we hired. That was a bad rumor. I don't know what happened there.
Oh.
This is awkward, right?
Disaster.
Nebraska fans compared to almost any other fan base that cares at all are the most gentle fans in the world. It's unreal.
And
the only people that think Nebraska has too much pressure are people that haven't been anywhere else.
Yeah.
Or that they're like, oh, I mean, Iowa State doesn't have this kind of pressure. It's like, yeah, it's Iowa State, man. They also haven't won anything. Go to Texas A&M, man. That was the funniest thing when Trev left. Was just like, oh, you think it's going to be better there?
Of all
the places
you go. You want to talk about...
He goes to a place with more pressure that hasn't won anything in 100 years.
Those people... We talk about Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
No. Listen, Texas A&M, I'm not afraid to call them freaks.
Yeah, they're full-on psychos.
They haven't won anything since the 1930s.
Yes.
But they want to just... They're swinging their big...
attitude.
Bollocks around.
Their big attitude.
Like
they act like they're Bama. They think they're Bama.
They do.
It's like, I get your colors are almost the same. You're not Bama.
No.
It's a different shade of red, brother.
Like, cool. Like, Kyle Field is cool. And,
it's fine.
Your creepy Yell squad.
Your cadets.
Is that what we're calling them? Cadets?
I think some of them are technically in the military, so, like, thank you for your service. But aside from that.
See, and that's the thing. I think that's kind of the thing is we don't really know, like, are these guys in the military or are they just, like,
I don't know if it's, like, actually a military, if it's, like, an ROTC situation. I really don't. But it's the M in A&M stands for military.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I don't know if they're like fully enlisted. If somebody knows, TK probably knows. TK knows, or Steven, my well actually guy, if you guys know.
He's the well actually guy?
Steven is, yeah. My guy Steven Young.
Does he do
Not Steve Young.
Does he like really spell it the actually part? Like actually?
Now he does because they kind of like have made it a thing.
Yeah.
But I like Steven. He's a good guy. But this is I'm sure somebody knows if they're like actually fully enlisted or if it's like an ROTC situation or what it is.
Yeah.
But so I don't like if they're actually in the military, then I don't want to make fun of them as much. But
still, the whole like butt
it's strange.
slap
It's weird, and the kissing. It's weird.
What are we doing?
What are we doing here?
And it's not just us. Do you remember that video that came out when Texas A&M first went into the SEC? They released a video with like people affiliated with the university wearing like Alabama shirts, or they were wearing Tennessee shirts, and they were doing like the Tennessee person would do a Tennessee like thing. Like these people are weird, man.
Yeah.
Like this is their entry into the SEC, and they're going out there and going, "Oh, roll Tide." What? That's not how it should be, man. It's weird.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. So if you can't deal with the pressure at Nebraska, I challenge you just to find any place where you're playing major college football where there's less pressure.
If you're a quarterback,
and
you are afraid of 90,000.
Yeah.
Less crazy people.
100% less crazy.
If you can't handle it here,
you can't handle it anywhere.
Like,
that's why I said it's a loser mentality.
We're so nice.
Like, really, we are. Like, I get that
nice.
there's some bad apples out there. I get it.
Welcome to
life, just humanity. Yeah. Congratulations, right? But in the grand scheme of things, but I will say it's not a detriment because the only reason Nebraska is or can ever be relevant again is because we care so much. It's kind of like Kansas basketball. There's no reason Kansas should be good at basketball. I get that it's like where it was born and or like whatever, like Naismith was there, like whatever, right? I think he was born in Massachusetts, but he ended up coaching at Kansas, right?
Yeah.
But like, there's no reason for like their population's very similar to Nebraska's.
True.
They don't. There's no reason for there to be like a hotbed of basketball talent in Kansas, right?
There's no recruiting.
You know why Kansas is good at basketball? Because they demand it. They demand to be good at basketball, and the resources that they allocate to it reflect that demand. Mm-hmm. That is the same thing at Nebraska, and it's the only reason Nebraska matters is because we demand it, right? And I get on the field, Nebraska hasn't mattered for a while. But the only reason that Matt Rule can come in here and make what he makes and bring the people that he brings in here from NFL backgrounds for the last, John Butler was an NFL head coach or NFL defensive backs coach for 10 years.
Yeah.
He would have had other opportunities, right? Like, he's very good at what he does. His numbers at Buffalo were incredible. He came to Nebraska, right? There's a reason he can go and be like, yeah, we've got the best football facilities in the world. He's been to other places.
It's true.
He was in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the NFL. So we've got the best football facilities. We've got the best this. We've got the best that. We've got the best everything, right? Why does that exist?
Best
because
fans.
1.8 million people in the middle of the country demand that it exists.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful question.
Yes, it is. Thanks, Coach Rule. Like that's the only reason. So you don't get, DB says this all the time. You don't get this life without me in it, right? You don't get all of the stuff the positives you get from the fan engagement without having a little bit of pressure. And to be fair, like we just pointed out, it is way less damn pressure than any other place that has what Nebraska has.
Imagine going to, I know we keep using SEC schools just because it matters more. They're the easy target.
Well,
okay,
media days right now, they're going on.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Imagine going to Tennessee and they have a few 4-8s in a row. They don't go to a bowl for 7 straight years. Just imagine. What would Neyland Stadium look like? What do you think Neyland Stadium would look like?
Half empty.
Just an empty
shell of a stadium.
Empty, you do the Rocky Top and you don't hear anything because there's no fans in the stands.
Not a soul.
And so, yes, you're right. We are willing, as Nebraska fans, to sit on these wooden planks
and pee in the troughs.
Which is just degen behavior, by the way.
100%.
Thank you for agreeing with me, because I need walls. I don't know about you, Ravi.
I need stall walls.
Some people might call me shy. And yeah, I am a little bit. I'm sorry. But my main point is, no bowl for 7 straight years. We show up.
Guess what's still full? Memorial Stadium.
Still red and some white.
And Jared's bladder because he's a nervous peer. Coming up next, we've got Steve Sipple from Husker Online. He will join us here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back.
Oh.
We will be back. We will be back.
It's because I want a mustache like that.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That is Jared Hall from the No Block, No Rock podcast.
What's up?
Also has a day job, but that's okay.
That's right, I do. Not right now, but.
I'm Ravi, Lulla. We're here on the Pillar Exterior stage. If you're driving into work, which Jared's not right now, but that's okay, you make sure you are clicking that seatbelt. Wearing seatbelt saves lives and prevents injuries, but only if it's worn properly. Make it click. Message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. This isn't, I wouldn't call this breaking news.
It's interesting news.
But it's, it's
timely.
It is, there's some stuff happening on, you said Twitter's not real life, but sometimes it is.
You're right. What is happening?
Matt Rule just tweeted out a picture of him. Just hashtag GBR is the only text. He's wearing a crown. He's wearing sunglasses, and he's pointing
with the double
finger
thing.
The double finger point. If you're watching on the stream, he's doing the double finger point here that he started doing. What does this mean?
With sunglasses on
and the crown. Don't forget the crown.
With the Hawaiian shirt. And that is not a Burger King crown. That looks a little more
substantial than a Burger King crown. That's not paper. Yeah, right. That's not a paper crown.
Who gave him that crown? Like, what did he do to get that crown, do you think?
I'm trying to Zapruder film this picture here. I think he's on a cruise.
Looks like he's on a cruise.
I think he might be on a cruise. So maybe the Royal Caribbean cruises, you get the crown or something. I don't know.
Who's he pointing at?
What's he pointing at?
I'm analyzing pixel by pixel.
Yeah.
This is what we do.
Yeah.
Could it be a new
mitt?
A new mitt? Is that what you call it? A new mitt? That's a new one. I stick with Crute. I'm a big Crute. Is that a new Crute?
You a big Crutin guy?
I might be a mitt guy though.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You might be pointing at a mitt.
That's awesome.
I might be pointing at a mitt off screen.
Like the reason why we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
Well, first because
Sipple took too long to answer his phone. But
he's here now.
What's up, Sip? Sip, you see this picture?
Why else are we doing this? Joining us now, Steve Sipple from Stephen M. Sipple. The M
Yeah.
today stands for
Mitt.
Mitt, as in commit, possibly.
Maybe, I don't know.
Stephen M. Sipple from Husker Online. What's up, Sip?
Mitt, that's like Mitt Romney.
Hey, the RNC is happening.
Just trying to be topical.
Mitt Romney.
It is. Tis the season.
I think you could do better than Mitt, but that's fine.
I could do Mick, like Mick Tinglehoff.
Ooh, that's a reference.
Mick Jagger.
Yeah, maybe. I'm sorry. I don't know. If you think you're more of a Jagger than a Tinglehoff?
Absolutely.
I mean, Tinglehoff, I'm 5'8", 170, all right?
Okay.
I mean, Tinglehoff played center in the NFL for years, and he wasn't 5'8", 170, I wouldn't say.
Well, it depends on what years those were. Those centers used to be pretty small, Sip.
Not 5'8".
That's right. He used to block plumbers and
so there, Sip, we're trying to analyze this photo that Coach Rule put out. Do you think he ever kind of is trolling us a little bit because he knows we do this?
Well, you're assuming that I know what you're talking about. I don't. What photo did he put out?
So he tweeted out a photo. He just hashtag GBR, and it's just him wearing a crown and sunglasses and pointing to someone off screen.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Neither do we.
My initial thought was like, how some coaches before, like the guys actually signed, you can't talk about recruits. So my thought was any ambiguous tweet that seems positive, I assume is a recruiting tweet.
A new Mitt.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it could be a coaching hire. He's in the midst of those. Hiring some guys now that they can work on the field. I don't know how to term those hires, but some of that's going on too. It almost seems like it could be that to me, but
fair.
Who knows?
Fair.
Yeah. I mean, that was a big hire they made. The guy from Lee Summit, Missouri.
Mosey.
Big.
Mosey.
Yeah, Mosey. And I know he was really excited about it. So maybe he's got a big, like a bigger name.
Ooh.
I don't know. Hard to say.
Well, Sip, this is Jared Hall from the No Block No Rock podcast. It's good to talk to you finally. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time, Stephen M. Sipple. Speaking of this Mosey guy, you say that Rule is excited, and I guess I'll just ask you to go into why is he excited about this Mosey hire?
Oh, I mean, it's kind of a flex. You're hiring a guy from Lee Summit who has a son who's very good. I mean, it could be an avenue to his son, I think it's Isaiah, who's a receiver. They line him up at running back. He's an interesting player. Recruited as a receiver. He's currently committed to Oregon. And I'm not saying, now listen, now it comes off as well, yeah, they went and got his dad to coach because he has a son. Well, I mean, that's part of the equation, but it gives you a well-known name in that Kansas City area, which dried up for Nebraska a little bit in recent years. Not completely, but dried up more than a lot of people are comfortable with. So it gives you a recognizable name there. It gives you a guy who was very successful as a high school coach. So yeah, I mean, I know Rule was excited about that. I mean, from what I've heard is you might see the elder Mosey on the road as a recruiter. I think it's very possible. He's, this is not a small hire. I don't know exactly what he'll be making, but I have a pretty good idea because I know other people who tried to hire him. And I know what they're going to try to pay him. I think Nebraska, and here's where the Big Ten, I guess the money comes in. The Big Ten can flex in these situations, and if there's a school from another conference, we'll just say other than the SEC or Big Ten, that wants a coach like this, they're probably not going to be able to compete with the Big Ten financially. That's where this is. I just bring this up because it's a great example of where the Big Ten and the SEC have an advantage, the money advantage. You can go get a guy like this and pay him a lot more than, say it's a team in the Big 12. I mean, I'm not even saying UCF, but a team in the Big 12 could pay it. Or a team in the ACC or a team in the Mountain West, whoever, Conference USA. They just can't. The Big 10, you can come in and flex and get it.
Sip, you mentioned, they're working on some other guys. I'm not going to ask you to name names or anything here, but I'm just curious how you think they're going to go about filling some of these spots. And I guess, it's an unlimited number of spots, so it's kind of an open-ended deal here. But how do you think philosophically they're going to approach these spots?
There's different ways to do it. I think there's kind of an NFL model, right, where you hire like an assistant offensive line coach, an assistant secondary coach. By the way, I think Mosley will work with the secondary. I'm not positive. It hasn't been announced that way. In that, like that you could do it that way, right? I don't think it'll be exactly that way, like across the board. I don't know how. I don't know exactly how Matt will do it, but I imagine you're looking at about 10 additions, and I don't think these additions will make the sort of money that we call the full-time 10 assistant coaches or 9 assistant coaches.
Sure.
I don't think they'll make that. I don't think any of these new hires will make $670,000 annually like Evan Cooper was.
Right.
But they're not. On the other side of it, I could see it being, $150,000 a year, $200,000 a year in that range. So, yeah, I think that's the model. That's as close as I can get to it. And I do think we'll see some more names come out before Big Ten Media Days. And I think that maybe right prior to Big Ten Media Days, we might get the full allotment in an official banner. I don't know if they'll be ready. I don't know if Matt Rule will be ready for that or not, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Sip, do you want to hang on with us through the break here and join us on the other side?
Sure.
You got a minute to do that?
Yeah, I got a minute.
Okay, perfect. That's Stephen Murphy Sipple from Husker Online.
There you go.
Murphy. We will be back with more from Sip. We appreciate him hanging on with us here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We will be back with more Stephen M. Sipple right after this.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are rejoined now. That's Jared Hall from NBNR. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are rejoined now by Stephen Monroe Sipple here from Husker Online.
I was going to say Millhouse.
Ooh, Millhouse is a good one. What's up, Sip?
Yeah, Monroe and Millhouse. Now you're talking.
I love it.
Listen, I wasn't on my game earlier. I apologize. We're recovering, We're bouncing back.
Yeah, Mitt Romney. We had to recover from Mitt Romney.
Oh, man.
Sip, so, you mentioned we were talking about the kind of putting together of these, I don't know what to call, auxiliary assistants. Is that
auxiliary?
I mean, so these kind of periphery assistant coaching positions.
Yeah.
So you expect them to kind of, like, you don't expect this to be a slow trickle kind of throughout whatever. Like, you expect them to make a hiring of a group of guys and kind of have that be it, right?
Well, I think so, because they got to get them. I think you have to get them in place for camp.
Right.
And camp begins July 31, so it's right on us, pretty much right on us. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you can still have a slow trickle now. I mean, it's July 15th, or 16th, wherever it is. No. So I think that, I think they'll start coming out a little bit. I don't know what form it'll take. It probably depends on the person, how active they are on social media or unactive they are on social media. But, it's funny. I only laughed when you said auxiliary assistants or peripheral, because I don't know how to name them either.
I don't either.
It's kind of, it's not confusing, but it's, we're just so used to in college football just saying the head coach and his full-time assistants. So now I don't know exactly how we're going to do it. His 9 full-time assistants or 10 full-time assistants, whatever the case may be. So now it's different. Yeah, it's causing me problems because I don't know how to name them either.
Well, speaking of full-time assistants, Sip, I'm not going to lie. I am still kind of like in a daze with this whole John Butler hire. I mean, it's seriously hard to imagine any better result coming from this set of circumstances. As a Husker fan who is definitely biased, is the other shoe going to drop here? Like, is it okay to feel good about this hire?
Yeah, I don't think there's another shoe I think it's okay. I mean, I've kind of reached a point in my life that I just don't sign off on everybody.
Right.
You know, we'll see how it goes. We'll see if he's a good fit here. And now, how are you going to determine it? Would it be fair to judge him stringently in year one under these circumstances? I'd say not. In fact, I said it with Rule staff going in. I don't judge these guys stringently, at least for a couple of years and maybe 3. And the reason, one reason just cropped up the other day. I was talking to E.J. Barthel, the running backs coach, and he wasn't. The subject wasn't about this. It was just part of the discussion. But he was saying, I'm just basically now trying to get a foothold in my recruiting area as a Nebraska coach. People are, I'm trying to learn, about coaches and players in these areas, and they're trying to learn about me because it's so early. Exactly. And I appreciated him saying it because it is early. We're in this very, very in college football. The nature of it is this way. I hear like my colleague Sean Callahan, he has said it a few times that this staff has to win now because they're losing guys to programs that are winning. They got to win. Man, he's not saying in the context of like job security, but it's so interesting. On one hand, we do this. Yeah, hey man, they got to start winning because they're losing guys. And then we say that in the media and in the fan realm. And then on the other end of it is, God, they're just trying to, they're still very new in this job, So it doesn't always match up very well, college football. With this yearning for immediate results. It doesn't really match up with the way it should be, but there's no stopping it. I don't have a remedy for it.
Yeah, there's kind of this weird balance, right, Sip, of it probably takes, especially with how early recruiting starts now. You're talking about, 2 or 3 years earlier than it used to start. So that's 2 or 3 years you are behind when you get on campus as a new coach.
Great point, Ravi.
Especially if you weren't in the college game like Rule wasn't, right? Like he didn't have relationships with existing high school players because he wasn't coaching college when he came to Nebraska. So you've got these guys that are 2 or 3 years behind in recruiting, but at the same time, you've got to win within those first 2 or 3 years to be able to get some of these recruits. Like it's kind of a much more delicate balance than it used to be, because the timetable on winning has been sped up and the timetable on recruiting has been extended so much.
Great point. Yeah, you're kind of operating from behind.
Yeah.
And again, you can't. You're not really allowed to, but you are. And you will never hear Matt Rule say what we're saying. He won't say that. Right. I don't even know that he'd express it privately. He's sure the hell not going to say it publicly like us. And I'm not. Don't read this. I'm the biggest. I'm known as the biggest apologist in the media corps, and that's not what I'm doing here. I just recognize the challenge, and it really struck me when Barthel was saying that. And he's not making. He wasn't making excuses. He just said, I'm still kind of feeling my way along as a Nebraska coach in these areas where I've been assigned. Interesting, very interesting.
Well, yeah, and it's, I think there's some value just to acknowledging, like, hey, this is what the situation is. That doesn't mean they can't go out and still do what they need to do and do their jobs, but like the situation is challenging, and you do have things, whether it's NIL or the transfer portal, to kind of help offset some of those challenges. But if you don't, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like if you don't acknowledge the situation you're in, you're never going to be able to navigate it.
Right. It's just it always goes back, and now you're talking to a 58-year-old. It was Nebraska was in a great spot for so many years when they were sending the same guys to the same spots over and over, and there was no need for introduction. There was no, it was yeah, George Darlington has been coming here for 20 years. You know, and there was a benefit. It helped. Frank Solich, you know, as a running back coach, he's been going to New Jersey for 20 years, 15 years, whatever it was. No introductions needed. Coaches would call them, you know, because they knew him so well. There's benefits to that. And Nebraska, with all the tumult and all the changes over the years, I would always say, when you start that revolving door in the coach's office, you're begging for mediocrity. You're begging for it. I mean, that's you just fall in line with a lot of other programs that have shifted head coaches, shifted assistants. So many guys have gone through those doors that you forget a lot of them. And that's, I mean, it's necessary. You have to make changes when it doesn't work. But again, we're just talking about mediocrity.
And of course, what doesn't help matters is the introduction of like actual money, right? I mean, that just amplifies the pressure even more, because then you have fans who, of course, will use the argument that we're basically playing professional football now, right? There's no excuse. Like, I am paying this player through my NIL thing. This dude better perform, or I'm not going to pay you any more money.
Yeah, there's also that complication. I mean, there's good in that, because you can. I guess one good way to put it would be you can address your needs more quickly now. If you got holes in your roster, they're easier to address. They're easier to address. I'm not saying easy to address, because everybody's trying to get good players in the portal. They're in the portal, but you know, fortunately, Nebraska is really, really well positioned NIL-wise, and they've done a good job with it. Nebraska's got a very good NIL operation. I don't know. I mean, if they didn't, it'd be trouble. I mean, it'd be really trouble. But you don't have to worry about it. I've said it. I've been saying it for over a year. The least of Nebraska's concern is its NIL operation. To me, it's the very least of their concern.
Sip, is there, going back to kind of these auxiliary assistants, is that a way you think Matt Rule might try and hack that lack of familiarity by hiring guys that are familiar in those areas? I mean, we saw it with what he kind of tried to do with Bob Wager in Texas, and obviously that didn't work out, but we got Philip Simpson down from Florida as well. Now you've got Mosey from Kansas City. Like, that could kind of be, I don't want to say shortcut because that has a kind of a negative connotation, but a shortcut to familiarity with these regions where Nebraska is working a little bit behind.
Yeah. You cited three pretty good examples, and you got to be careful with it, though. I mean, I've heard people talk about, you go hire a head high school coach from a specific area. Well, what if that head coach has been beaten up on teams in that area? I mean, are those coaches going to be overly friendly to him?
Yeah, they might not be a big fan.
And you guys are Omaha guys, and it's hotly competitive in Omaha in that high school area.
Yeah.
And I can tell you just from what I've heard that there's sometimes that's not going to work.
Yeah, there's certain guys that would not be well received.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you gotta be aware of those nuances. But Rule, as you guys have probably ascertained, he can handle nuance. And I trust him on the topic. I guess that's the best way to put it. I trust a lot of them.
That is Stephen Magnus Sipple from Husker Online. Sip, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, slow start on the middle name, but then great finish.
Thank you.
Land of the plane.
Felt like I nailed the landing. We'll talk soon, Sip.
Yeah, you did. Good job. Good late round five. Good job.
You ain't knocked out.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln for this third hour. That's Jared Hall, who's not in the stream right now.
Nope,
Get back in the
I'm
stream.
getting in there.
Get back in the stream,
I'm
man.
trying.
He's from the No Block, No Rock podcast, where apparently they don't use technology.
I'm blaming the guest Wi-Fi here at Hurrdat Sports Bar.
How dare you disparage the guest Wi-Fi
I am plugging the place that we are at, so you should come here when the place is open because they have great food and great drinks. But
great
the
TVs.
Wi-Fi is
great
low.
TVs.
Yes.
Well, you know, most people aren't trying to stream a live broadcast on their phones while they're watching a game here, so that's probably part of the issue.
Yeah,
we got a lot going on here.
Listen, I'm saying if we're a sports bar, man, we should be like have cables all around so there's no issues, you know, like we shouldn't be having this issue.
I've never had the issue while I was here watching games.
That's fair.
I think we're asking a lot of that. We're putting a lot of
we're putting a lot of stress on.
We are. We got lots of people streaming. We're doing a lot of stuff here.
I think we're good now.
We're efforting Mike Schaefer. He should be joining us here in a little bit. But good stuff there from Sip.
Yeah.
We love talking to Sip.
Sip's a good old school guy.
Yeah.
Changed his name a few times for him.
Yeah. So while
I feel like a penguin.
That's about right.
Classic Sip line.
Man, that dirt looks amazing.
So while we're allowing our hype train to get away from us here, as we view pictures of Matt Rule, I think on a cruise,
still deciphering.
Not sure who he's pointing at. Not sure why he's wearing a crown. Not sure why he tweeted. Maybe he just want to be like, hey, even on the cruise, I'm still all big red. Maybe I don't know.
Well, he knows what he's doing, man.
That's why I asked.
We're freaks here.
That's why I asked
like
Sip if sometimes he kind of trolls us a little bit. You know, like just messes with us a little, Or maybe something great's happening.
Something great has to happen. It has to happen.
Have you allowed yourself to think? Have you allowed your mind to go to this place of, like, I know we're all trying to temper our expectations and be rational and be like, hey, we just need like reasonable QB numbers out of Dylan Raiola. Have you allowed yourself to wonder, like, what if he's awesome?
What if he's awesome? And then
like, have you allowed your mind to go there?
Like, and then I would throw that back to you. Like, define awesome, right? Are we talking 30 touchdowns with like 7 picks? Like, is that awesome?
Yeah, let's say it's,
you know what I mean?
Like 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, and under 10 picks.
I am not allowing that.
You're not allowing yourself
not
to
allowing that.
entertain that. What about like
We've got Mike Schaefer here.
What about like 3,000, 25, and 10?
Still too optimistic.
Still
yeah.
good? Okay.
I can't do it.
We're joined now by Mike Schaefer, our guy from Husker 24/7. What's up, Schaefer?
Oh, just having a day. It's what, 9 a.m.? So,
yeah.
You know.
That's
got that going for me.
I hope your pup is feeling better. That's always rough.
He stopped vomiting, so we've reached that stage. So that's good.
That's good.
I ran out of resolve. The carpet may never recover, but
okay, as long as Slider recovers, the carpet can be replaced.
I agree. He's sleeping at the top of the stairs right now. Hasn't moved in the last 2 hours, but just go check on him. He's all right.
You know, the throwing up of the dog that takes a lot out of him. He needs to recover.
It fascinates me that it generally only seems to occur between 11 and 4 a.m.
Have you ever woken up faster in your life than when you start to hear that dog throw up noise?
Well, he has seizures as well, so yes.
Oh, okay.
Both of them are quite jarring when you're in the middle of sleep.
Yeah, it is. There's nothing that wakes me up faster than when I start to hear that like guttural noise, and I'm just like, oh, we gotta go.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't know this issue was going on with Schaefer, so when you brought it up, I was getting PTSD flashbacks because I just kind of had a scare with my dog not too long ago. So I'm like, oh man, that's a tough thing to deal with, man.
Yeah, it's not particularly fun for me. It's a lot less fun for him. So hopefully, I don't know if he got like a little heat stroke. He was only out for like 20 minutes yesterday total.
Yeah.
But it was hot. I know that. So, and he's old. Who knows? It could be anything. He could have ate something.
Well, we wish Slider the best. So I was asking Jared here, if you're not, you've been on NBNR, so you know Jared.
Hey.
I was asking Jared if he's allowed himself to go to the place mentally to kind of imagine a scenario of like, what if Dylan Raiola's awesome as a freshman? Like, have you allowed yourself to entertain that possibility? Because it is on the table, right? I'm not saying it's the most likely possibility, but like it's on the table that Dylan Raiola might just be really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely allowed myself to think that because I think he has that ability. And I think Nebraska surrounded him with a roster that sets up to be reasonably successful right off the bat. I mean, he has weapons, and he has weapons that fit with what his skill set is. I mean, if he's able to unleash the deep ball, and Andrew Ivins at 24/7 Sports talks about how he had one of the better high school deep balls he's ever seen. And you have Jalen Lloyd, and you have Isaiah Nair, and you have Malachi Coleman, and you have Ja'Cory Barney. You have this speed, and you can't defend everybody. And we know that Matt Rule aggressively liked to attack downfield when they were at Baylor, when they were successful in 2019, Tyquan Thornton and those guys. It wasn't a 5-yard throw that turned into a 65-yard play. It was like a 35-yard throw that turned into a 65-yard play. I mean, so they've got guys that can run. They went out and they got players like this, and they needed the right quarterback that could help unleash that. And Dylan can be that guy. And then he has a veteran offensive line. Now their pass protection, we got to see where that's ultimately going to be at and what he's like when he's under siege. The spring game didn't give you a great indication of that. But he has veteran pass catchers. He has Thomas Fidone as a safety outlet. You have Ramir Johnson potentially as a third down running back or as a guy who can catch out of the backfield for you. I mean, they have the right pieces around him offensively for that big season, for that scenario that you're discussing to play out. It's just a matter of, can he be that good at this age. And another reason why it's possible is that, quite frankly, he's been groomed and developed for this moment. Like, there's a reason he's not at Georgia. And it's not just because his dad's name is on the stadium wall at Memorial Stadium. It's because this is an opportunity for him to play right away. You're not doing that if you aren't mentally at the point where you feel like you can go out there, even at 18 years old, and go command an offense and go play against Power 5 teams. And he thinks he can do that. And I don't have any reason to think otherwise either at this point. Now, does that mean that he's going to have 25 touchdowns to 5 interceptions and 3,000 yards? I don't know, but it sure sounds good, right?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, on our podcast last night, we were kind of waxing poetic about Adrian and that big freshman year that he had. And we kind of asked ourselves, even the Heisman came up a few times back then. And as his career went along, it was, wow, his back is hurting because he has to carry, he's doing everything. And if he just had this and this and this around him. So when you, Schaefer, talking about Jalen Lloyd going deep, and you got Thomas Fidone and an improved offensive line, it's not too far-fetched to think, could we get a better freshman Adrian? And that just kind of builds from there. So
yeah, I mean, if you look at it this way, freshman Adrian Martinez had Stanley Morgan and J.D. Spielman. I can't remember who the tight end was that year. Eventually, he had Austin Allen to throw to, but they chose not to. Not Adrian's decision or Austin's decision here. Just Nebraska's offensive schematics. But he had pieces. And then we saw in 2019 and 2020, when you took away Stanley Morgan, when you took away Divino Zigbo, when you asked for Adrian Martinez to have to be Superman, ultimately there wasn't enough around him. That's why I think Dylan Raiola enters a much better situation. They have better pieces. Now, I wish they had the running back situation completely solved? Absolutely. Is there a chance that could be much better than I think that it will be? Yes. But that's probably the last vestige on this offense, at least for this upcoming season, where I have a real question. You know, I think the offensive line is going to be good. You got a lot of veterans. You got a lot of starts there. I know Thomas Fidone is going to be good. He's coming off of a healthy 2-year run. I'm excited to see what that looks like. I think we kind of forget that you can't develop when you're having to rehab all the time. And so the jump that he might make from last year to this year is pretty substantial. We've got these wide receivers. So there's all of these pieces. And if he can stay on time, if Marcus Satterfield can find nice rhythm as a play caller, there's really all the reason in the world Nebraska's offense can take a seismic jump from last year. I mean, besides just trading out Raiola and Harburg, there's a lot of other good things going on with this offense.
We're talking with Mike Schaefer, Husker 24/7. Schaefer, I wanted to talk about Bryson Weber and his commitment to Nebraska over the weekend. Obviously, he's a really interesting one for me because of the position he plays and because of the turnover at that position recently. What does this tell you about how John Butler's kind of being received by recruits and just kind of in general?
Well, I don't want to make too much of John Butler just because, I mean, ultimately the staff was all in on Bryson Weber. This is a guy that they were really interested in, you know, but he had to feel good about what was happening with John Butler to want to also say yes to Nebraska. But I think as a staff, they did a great job recruiting him. And this is a guy that's coming in early. I mean, he's someone that, you know, once Nebraska was sort of where he wanted to be, he had made the decision that he was going to get there as soon as he could. And so when the news happened with Evan Cooper, he had to kind of, you know, reevaluate the situation. So I think his trust in Matt Rule allowed him to feel like they were going to bring in somebody. I think that John Butler is more than just bringing in a random defensive backs coach, and I think that certainly helped. He had a quote to Brian Christopherson about, you know, John Butler is another great coach as well. So for me at this point, they're obviously building something great, and just why not be a part of that? And I think that kind of speaks to the mentality Bryson Weber had even before everything went down. And this is someone that they, as a staff, again, and Cooper was a big part of it, really targeted him for this cornerback spot in this class. I think they like him a lot. You know, he's a fringe 4-star on the 24/7 Sports composite. He's a guy that I think the recruiting industry is going to keep a close eye on as he goes through his senior year. But I know he's someone over there in the stadium that they're view pretty highly relative to what his recruiting ranking is.
And I think with the Bryson Weber recruitment and the special circumstance with Evan Cooper, a big concern that people have about recruiting is they're committing to a particular specific coach and they're not committing to the program itself. And so when you have Coop leave, but Bryson Weber decides to still commit to Nebraska, it should give you some encouragement that Matt Rule is the guy that they're committing to and not just a specific guy. And it just gives you hope for the future that if there's anything about Matt Rule, this dude sells the Nebraska program. The dude is all in. And when you have a circumstance like this where Bryson Weber could have easily just, all right, I'm going to go somewhere else because I have a position coach here that I like or have a relationship with, it's encouraging that we have Matt Rule as a steward of the program.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing for recruits and the big pitch from Matt Rule is it's a family. And so, you know, if you have a member that's leaving, you have to trust that Matt Rule is going to bring in someone that can do the job. And I think that's kind of where Bryson Weber came down at it. And he had an opportunity to talk with John Butler, and it was a good conversation. But, you know, as he mentioned to Brian Christopherson, I think the trust was there that they weren't just going to plug anybody in at being a defensive backs coach. And I think the fact that he felt like it wasn't just, oh, Evan Cooper wanted me, Nebraska wanted me. Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing with how they recruit. I mean, obviously you have those individual relationships, and there's certain recruits that are going to end up here because they have a stronger relationship with the coach than maybe anything else. But they also want to make sure that they have that relationship with the school, with the campus, with the people that are going to be, you know, the weight room coaches, the strength and conditioning coaches, the nutrition staff. They want that relationship with everybody, because when you're at Nebraska, you're part of Nebraska. You're not just one of Evan Cooper's guys, or you're not just one of Rob Dvorak's guys or Garrett McGuire's guys. You're a Nebraska Cornhusker. And so I think they really try to emphasize that throughout the recruitment process, because it's part of building the unity is on the front end. It's not just when you show up and oh, we're a team now. They want you to buy into that before you ever get here.
Schaefer, about Bryson Weber as an actual football player and not just kind of what he means for the overall recruiting of Nebraska, a kind of a long, lanky corner, not the body type really they have at that position right now. Do you think that's something they're kind of trying to intentionally make a shift towards in the secondary?
Well, I think we saw with Bly Hill. I think I was a little loud there. Sorry if I blew everybody's eardrums out. I think as we saw with Bly Hill, I mean, they definitely like the idea of long, lanky cornerbacks. I mean, I think I don't know of a single defensive backs coach that I've ever covered that's been 6'3" is too tall for a corner. We wouldn't want those long arms to happen to get in the way of a ball being thrown towards a receiver. So I think every defensive backs coach ideally would love to find those big rangy guys that can also run and cover. The big thing is, how well does Bryson Weber turn his hips? Because you got to be able to sink and run to play corner. And so I think that's what a lot of the evaluation is. Okay, you're big and you're long. What makes you not a safety? It's the ability to play in coverage and to turn those hips and to be able to move. And they like his ability to do that. They wouldn't put him in this position if they didn't think that he could turn and run. And so that's why I think as he gets here, he's one of those guys that will actually stay at corner because he's long and because he can actually move. The value add there as an outside corner, when you get into the Big Ten Conference specifically, and you think about some of those physical wide receivers, you love the idea of the long arms being able to jam at the line of scrimmage, to be able to get up there on the top of your jump to knock the pass away. So that's what you're hoping a Bryson Weber can do, but it starts with that hip movement and being able to run, because if you can't do that, then he's destined for safety. And frankly, if you can't turn your hips well enough to play corner, they're probably going to move you to rover, and then someday we're talking about you as a linebacker. That's how this staff works.
And another kind of notable thing that's happened in the past couple of days is the hiring of Jamar Mosey, most notably a high school coach in the Kansas City area. And a big kind of talking point with that is he can hopefully help to establish those recruiting relationships that have kind of gone stagnant. And I actually looked on Husker 24/7, the actual one that you work for, not the fake one.
Appreciate that.
Of course. I'm always going to plug you, Mike J. Schaefer. 22 Missouri recruits since 2000. Like, when I say that to you, like, does that sound like a reasonable amount? Should it be more? Like, what do you think in terms of Nebraska at least getting back into that area? And do you think 22 Missouri recruits in the past 24 years is indicative of success or not?
I mean, I think if you condensed it to the last 10 years, you're probably talking about 6.
Yeah.
And so that number kind of goes down the further away you get from John Garrison and Frank Solich and some of those guys that really recruited that area hard. And it's not that Scott Frost ignored it, but they didn't emphasize it, which was weird to me because Ryan Held is a Kansas City guy through and through and is well known in there. And yet they didn't really ever make it seem like, okay, we want to go into Kansas City. And, we're going to try to get the best guys, obviously. But what about the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth? And it just felt like they ignored it a lot. And that's the same thing that it felt like Mike Riley's staff did. And to a degree, Bo Pelini's staff. There's certain guys that I can remember. And an example I used on another show, Elijah Lee, this talented player that I watched play. He's teammates with the Davis twins. And big, long, lanky edge defender. Rick Kaczynski was interested, but they were slow on deciding to offer. Basically, the kid's going to commit if they offer. They decide, you know what, we'd rather have DeAndre Wills, this kid that we know nothing about from the South, because he's from the South. And he came to Nebraska and he quit on day 2. And went back to the South, because that's what happens when you quit. And you go, you're from the South, you're going home pretty quickly. And so, Elijah Lee goes to Kansas State, develops, goes to the NFL. And it's one of those things where it just felt like Nebraska vacated that area at the absolute wrong time because Wisconsin has gone through and gotten some great players out of Kansas City. Oklahoma is in Kansas City all the time now and had been pre-Venables. Texas has gone into Kansas City. Michigan has gone into Kansas City. Alabama has gone into Kansas City. What the hell is Nebraska doing? These are the schools that you want to recruit with, but no, you're like, I'd rather go to Texas and get the 75th best player instead of the 8th best player in the Kansas City area. I don't get it. Like, there's talent there. And then what happens is when you vacate like that, the high school coaches know you don't have the Pied Piper effect. There's not kids from Kansas City that are having success at Nebraska. And so there's just not that excitement and enthusiasm to be there. And so you miss out on some really good players. And it feels like they've really done themselves a disservice. So the staff has to kind of dig out of that hole. And, we saw it. The top 2 players are going to Oregon. Isaiah Mosey's committed to Oregon right now, and then Dawson Merritt's committed to Alabama. Like, Dan Lanning is from the Kansas City area. It's only going to get more competitive. So Nebraska has to do something or just give up on it entirely, which would be a huge mistake.
And you were talking about those top-tier schools going in. I mean, and that's leaving out. Lance Leipold's doing good work at Kansas.
Right. Well, and then your local schools, Iowa State's doing well. Yeah. Kansas State's doing well. Kansas is doing well. Missouri is doing well. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Nebraska hasn't been to a bowl game in 8 years and has probably pulled 2 kids from Kansas City in that time. I'm not saying that changes the complexion of everything, but when everyone else around your program is doing well and recruiting that area, I don't know, maybe I'd stop and think we could do something different
here. Shafe, we asked this TK asked this question of us earlier. Is there another kind of region of the country where you wouldn't mind getting one of these prominent high school coaches to get Nebraska some connections back into an area?
It's weird because I tend to think, out west is always a little bit less competitive, even though the recruiting world has gotten really small. I know everybody would want to go into Florida or Texas. I think they have strong enough Texas connections. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I would love to see more help out west. I know Tony White is a really strong recruiter, but I think that it's been relatively hard outside of, Syer Wright with the transfer, but it's been relatively hard to pull some of those California kids. Again, we saw with Dante Williams, if you get the right guy in that area, you can be really successful. also Arizona. I mean, Nebraska has a really rich history in Phoenix and in Arizona in general. And that one kind of feels like it's always sort of if we get a kid, we get a kid. But I'll tell you this, Phoenix is an area where those kids aren't just lining up to go to Arizona State. Everybody else in the country is like, ooh, Arizona State, that could be fun. And the kids in Phoenix are like, nah, we're going elsewhere. So I think that would be an area. I don't know. I don't have a name that, that's the other thing. I can spout stuff, but I can't give you like, oh yeah, go hire this guy. But I look at Phoenix and Los Angeles as two areas where Nebraska has history, can build stronger connections, and isn't already overlapped in the way that they are in Texas. With Florida, I just think it's so hard. I think they had Evan Cooper, they had Philip Simpson. They did some nice work in there, but it's just going to be hard to be successful year in and year out in the Sunshine State.
That's Mike J. Schaefer, Husker 24/7. Great stuff as always, Schaefer. We appreciate the time, and we hope Slider's feeling better.
All right, I appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
That is Mike J. Schaefer from Husker 24/7. Coming up next, we've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's Jared Hall. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln, live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's Jared Hall from the No Block, No Rock podcast. I'm Ravi Lulla from Hurrdat Sports Radio, as you may know. Speaking of Hurrdat Sports Radio, joined now by our guy, DB, a guest on his own show. What's up, DB?
There he is.
Hey, how are you guys, man? You good?
Oh, yeah. Do you know Jared at all?
I do. I do. I laugh a lot of his stuff on social media, so I'm pretty used to it.
Yeah, he's nuts.
Yeah, I'm
yeah. I mean, makes being a fan fun. I like it. I'm pretty loosey goosey. When I grow up and get a little more secure, I'll let my hair down too.
Not like me, who's very serious and very on point.
Hey, speaking of which, so I'm just coming in from our workouts from Inside Out, and I don't like to carry my phone or whatever, so I look at my phone and I get a message from Caleb. And, I'm scrolling one line at a time because I'm an Android guy. And the text it said, "Stop playing with me." And I text back, I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, just hit the 22-mile-an-hour club.
Okay.
See you in August."
Okay.
Shoot, man.
All right.
And I looked at it, I read it. I gave him like the surprise face emoji, and I'm like, if I lose this bet, I'm going to kind of be happy, but I kind of won't, because I told him I didn't think he would probably play early, but the 22-mile-an-hour thing, plus he's 203 right now, like he's encouraged. So I'm like, I might have to eat this one.
Yeah, I mean, you and I disagree on that one with him playing early. I'm pretty.
I know. I could be the one that was wrong. It's fine. But it's like we talk about. Sometimes you just know too much, or you think you do.
Yeah. You're like too close to it.
But I also did know it, and I tried to tell people this. Like, he's never trained for one sport before, so he's basically a blank slate, and he does so many other things well that. The physical part of it was because how he used to make me mad. Oh, he's not this, he's not that. I'm like, what are you guys watching? You know what I mean? Like,
well, and people would I think his top end speed is something that people kind of knock him about. I think that was kind of one of the concerns. 22 mile an hour is pretty fast.
Yeah, he's tickled because it goes on the electric board and they post it, and there's only a handful of them. So like. I just, and it's my own kid. He tells me like I told you. So like, what is stop playing with me?
Doubting me.
I'm
talking trash to you.
I'm your dad. I'm a believer.
Well, here's the thing, right? We see this with like really good teams, how they like go out of their way to be like, you thought we were gonna stink, and so here we are. Like you see a lot of like
he's pulling a Georgia on you right now.
He's pulling a Georgia on you right now. And so, listen, but here's the thing. If it works,
who cares?
If it's in his head that you are doubting him, DB, and that's pushing him to get that extra MPH, let's go.
I'm just indifferent, right? Because I wouldn't say I would doubt, but that's just how I am, right? Because if you look at how Coach Rule's building this program, you can tell it's sequential. He wants to get old. He wants to have the next wave ready, and then the next wave ready. So you can see it in the depth chart. You can see how he's recruiting. Like, it's sequential. So, and I understand that. Like, I grew up in a similar system of kind of that whole totem pole thing. It's 2024. Can I say totem pole?
Yeah, those are real things.
That's okay.
Okay, yeah. So, there's kind of like this pecking order. And so I kind of had just resigned myself to that. But, I mean, it is what it is. I'm just glad that room has received Coach Butler so well. I get to hear all the stories over the last week and stuff. And I can just tell you one thing, discipline will not be an issue in that room. And if it is, you won't be around very long. So there it is. It's as close to zero tolerance as it gets, which is right in old Square Britches wheelhouse, because he pretty much toes the company line.
So I'm curious about kind of how you think the dynamic, and maybe I'm reading too much into the transfer from USC, Sierre or Sierre.
Sierre.
Yeah. Because that's a guy where, I think I openly asked this on the show. I was like, I don't know, is he in? Is he trying to do the acting thing, whatever?
Space Jam.
Seems like that may be, like, if he's not in, we're going to find out pretty soon with Coach Butler, right? Like, I don't think that's something he's going to play around with.
Yeah, and it's no, it's not a freebie, but he's not invested yet. So if it works,
great,
it's fantastic.
Bonus.
If it doesn't,
yeah,
then it's okay. And I think that's kind of their philosophy. In that position group is a lot like the rest of those guys, right? D-line, O-line. You can be one of those guys that's chasing, and you see what the end game is supposed to be, what it's supposed to look like, and then you get to decide if it's for you or not. And they'll treat you like adults, but they'll hold you accountable as well, or in addition to that. So, like, it'll sort itself out. And I say it all the time, right? It's a tough sport. It's not for everybody. And if it's not for you, that's okay, right? We can just move on, and no harm, no foul, right? Coach Rule, who coined the phrase when we were talking about Trev, you guys get too attached to things. People come, people go. It's big time college football. Like, you have to lighten up. So I'm like, okay, I'll lighten up. I won't get attached to too much of anything, right? People will come and go, right? And in the meantime, he's not letting himself off the hook in terms of building relationships. He's setting the expectation level. Hey, listen, this is the manner in which we do business. This is how we want to operate. This is what the expectation level is. You have to figure out where within that spectrum we can help you and continue your growth and maturation, or if there's too great of an unshaded area, you just may stay on the outside, right? So I don't mind that at all, and I think Coach Butler more than exemplifies that. I gave a couple of guys a tour over the weekend that were coming in from Switzerland, and I may or may not have peeked at the dry erase board and see what's going on and stuff. And attention to detail is not a problem, and I think it's happened right at the right time. And it's like I said a couple of weeks ago, Ravi, when the news first broke. Not that the room was loosey-goosey, but when you have that many personalities, and they kind of have their own DNA within that nomenclature, that a little business-like approach would not hurt that room, right? They got a lot of young guys, and so protocol and how to do the day-to-day may be right on time.
We look at Matt Rule, and he's had a pretty busy week.
Yes,
and it goes back a little bit more than a week with the Evan Cooper situation, then hiring Butler in his stead, and then Mosey coming on board. And apparently he's on a cruise or something. I don't know if you've seen this. What is going on with Matt Rule right now? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know how much to put out there, but put it to you like this. So Friday, when my guys were in town visiting from Switzerland, I wanted to give a tour. But I know that they have rules, right? We're open this time, we're closed this time. This is not for everybody, this, that, and the other. So I asked, I said to Caleb, I said, hey, may need to use your scan card, whatever, can you help give a tour? He's like, well, we got church on Saturday, then we got community service, we got to go clean up a couple of yards, then I want to go to the movies later on Saturday night, so I'll give you this time or this time. And I was like, oh, okay, we can make it work. That was Friday night. So he texts back at like 9:30, and he said, hey, have you talked to Coach Rule? You may get in faster than I do. Do you want me to ask him? So I sent Coach Rule a message, and I'm like, hey, rather ask for permission than forgiveness this time. I was just trying to be funny. And he didn't, I woke up in the morning, he hadn't replied, which is pretty rare because sometimes he's a late night texter. So then when I finally heard from him, he told me where he was, and it's really, 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 really far away. Like, really far away. Really far. Across an ocean.
Looks that way.
Yeah, and his reply was, that's fine, don't ask me again. And I was like, oh, is there a time difference? What is it? Did I interrupt? No, I'm just playing. I mean, but that was kind of his delivery, right? But point is he doesn't, we talk about this all the time. He won't do anything that he's not going to ask you to do anything that he won't do himself. So if he takes a vacation, or he gets away, or it's a graduation party before his oldest starts school, or whatever, he's going to make sure he's either working or his work is done. There are no days off. It would be miserable to be married to him, well, for a multitude of reasons. But like the whole, are you either with us or we're not? It's like, well, I want to be with my family, but I'm overseeing my extended family. He's never not working. Doesn't matter where he is. And the beautiful thing is he's empowered that support staff because the vision has already been casted, where you have autonomy to execute the goal because he trusts you, right? If you can't do those kinds of things without having good, solid, like-minded support around you to handle some of the stuff on the back end. So there's a peace of mind in that as well.
DB, hold on. We'll catch you on the other side of the break here, okay?
You got it.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up the show here on a Tuesday on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's Jared Hall from the NBNR podcast. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are rejoined now by my typical co-host, good old DB. What's up, DB?
I'm trying to make it. I sent you the screenshot. I just want you to know that's poor parenting because I thought I'd earned better than that.
I'm just saying he stays petty. I like it. Is that why him and I get along? Is because we're.
It is. It's exactly why you guys get along. That's exactly why.
Did you tell him what I said about his graduation highlights video?
Yeah, but he said it's non-luck of the draw. That was his message to you.
Yeah, he did on purpose. I know.
Well, what did you say? If you don't mind my asking.
He had his highlight video, and it was like 90% Miller North highlights.
That's not true. It was just a lot of plays in that game.
I was like, hey, Caleb had a really good year against everybody. He didn't have to specifically go Miller North on me, bud. Almost exclusively go Miller North on me.
Not bad for a guy that missed the whole year. So that's kind of how it went.
Just saying, he did pretty good against like Bellevue West too, but didn't see a lot of that on there.
Yeah, that was personal.
I would ask him to go into specifics on that, but I don't know if that's protocol. Like, is that not Hurrdat Sports?
It's not Big Ten protocol.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I got to be careful. I got to tread lightly here.
No. Have you not worked with that guy before? There is zero boundaries. It's like a free for all.
DB, the last time that I did a show with Ravi, I don't want to say we got in trouble. Trouble's that's too harsh.
Listen, that's every day. I wonder if we're going to get the call.
We're going to have some speaks.
We did get pulled off the air.
So I can't tell you, Jared, how many times we've gotten done with the show, and we'll like pretend, look at the phone, and say, okay, like 3.
Here it comes. Just waiting on the call.
Lot of envelope pushing.
Well, you know,
but it does. But it doesn't happen very often, does it? I mean, you know what you're doing, Ravi. I'm in good hands here.
I don't know.
I'm in good hands.
Careful now.
What do you mean, DB?
Let's be careful. Hey, although I do like how Ravi has slowly been converted, Jared, because he used to be kind of one of those cool fans where he wasn't emotionally invested in like pictures and the off season and how guys body types. But now it's like as he's gotten older, he's like, oh hey, did you see such and such? And oh, he looked good. Or he'll comb through he'll Zapruder these videos.
Oh, I do.
Who's catching, who's throwing, and so he sends me this random message Sunday morning. He's like, Riola looks like he's lost some weight.
DB, we just got
zero context. Like zero. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like I'm like yell texting, right? And I go, doing? I'm like, where are you getting the images from? And he's like, oh, the whole running marathon thing. I'm like, try sending me the link so I have a frame of reference. And you know what he responded to me with? No. I'm trying to find it. Hang on. Like normal people have that like queued up. Hey, Shane, did you see this picture? Here it is. And like I send it to him, right? Ravi just thinks out loud and wants me to like eat the bird crumbs. I'm like, whoa.
So here's what happened, DB. Here's what happened. Is I assume because you consume so much, I just assume you've seen everything before I have.
Hey, that's fair.
What time was that? It was like 9:30 on a Sunday morning, wasn't it? I'm like,
I have no idea what time it was. To be honest, I think I was probably watching Carlos Alcaraz just dominate.
Oh gosh.
Oh, that was embarrassing. I'm surprised I didn't get any Wimbledon text.
Well, there wasn't a ton to talk about. It was just
Joker not being able to win any meaningful points, but outside of that, he just got his tail whipped.
It was 3:30 on Sunday. Come on, like that.
Was it 3:30?
Yeah,
maybe
that's
that
after church.
Might have been when I looked at my phone for the first time. I don't know. There's no coming with me.
That's true. You aren't great with the phone sometimes.
Yeah, well,
All right, Art.
Android boy.
That's true. I blame it on the Android.
Yeah, but Raiola, he did look fantastic.
He did look like he was leaned out a little bit.
But I told you he had some room to go, right? I told you that in the offseason. And I think a lot of those guys, wait till you see like Jamari Butler. I think Giff looks fantastic. You saw Nash.
Mm-hmm.
He looks incredible. Like I told you, and I thought it was petty at first until Coach Rule explained why. He said, I think there's something to just looking strong from a confidence standpoint.
That's why they bench, right?
He said that's why they added bench. He said, I only have one thing for Coach Campbell. He knows way more than me. I just want those guys to start benching again. I think there's something to looking strong. And so I was like, no, that's a good point, right? Like from a competitive standpoint or an emotional standpoint. And so like I'm all in.
And like from a confidence standpoint too, right? It's like you just see yourself in the mirror, you think differently about yourself.
Yeah, and from a guy that was kind of fat shamed when I was a running back at Lincoln, right? I was probably the last guy to just be all willy-nilly in the locker room. And it was because, when you have like Lawrence and Clinton and some of these guys, it's like, man, I don't know. Do I want to compare or like?
Well, it's kind of a losing.
I'm like 19 or 20 years old, and I was like, I'll go after you guys. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, so you mentioned a name that last year he had a pretty good year last year, Isaac Gifford, and I didn't have a chance to ask Stephen Millhouse Sipple this earlier, but he had ranked Isaac Gifford as his top Husker for 2024, number one. And I think a lot of people might look at that and they might say, just put Dylan there. Like, why are we beating around the bush? Like, he plays the most important position. But he put Isaac Gifford. And so I just want to ask you, like, what are your expectations for him? Are we crazy to think that he's like a high draft pick later? I mean, what do you think about Isaac Gifford?
Well, I do think – so there's two things in that. Number one, I do think he's a significantly better tester than what we've seen on the football field. And we've seen a pretty good football player on the football field. I mean, he's a 36-inch vertical guy. He's going to be a 10-foot standing broad jump guy. He's very good in the short shuttle. He's explosive. And I think the thing for him this year and why he wanted to come back is because he wanted people to understand that he's more than just a in the box, down the hill kind of guy. He wants to show athleticism. They want it to correlate. He's a very good tester. And so I think for him, there's some personal objectives he wants to hit too, because he's just now starting to hit his stride as a complete defensive back. And the cool thing about what Sipple said is he's for sure in my top three. But I would, in Sip's defense, I would put him ahead of Dylan.
Okay.
So I don't really have any problems with that. Even though Dylan has significantly more upside and he plays the premier position, I don't think he has to be great for Nebraska to achieve their goals. Dylan could just be good, and Nebraska will be just fine. I think Gifford has to play at a high level, and I do think he's the most indispensable, right? I mean, because for all the hand-wringing we have about Harvard, he still won 5 games last year. We haven't shown that anybody can play behind anything in this secondary with Gifford being a key cog. Ravi and I, a month ago, went through the safeties in just the Big Ten Conference alone. I mean, there are some premier legit safeties in this conference. And so you can talk Purdue, you can talk Wisconsin, you could talk Iowa, you could talk Ohio State, more at Michigan. I mean, there are some fellas in this conference that can patrol the field, and those teams are good defensively. West Lafayette could boast the same thing. So I think for Gifford, I wouldn't give too much. Sip says a lot of silly things, but I wouldn't give him much pushback at all. I think Gifford's his dominance, potential dominance at that position in controlling that back end, I think is critical.
DB, got about a minute and a half here left with you. I speaking of Dylan, kind of tangentially here, I know a lot of Nebraska fans have kind of allowed themselves or tried to prepare themselves for maybe if it's, not the best case scenario. They're like, we can win games and have him only be average, which I think is true. Have you allowed yourself to think about the other side of it, where it's like, what if he really is everything that he's supposed to be?
Well, you want me to tell you what Ding Dong said a month ago?
I do, yeah.
You know, well, I told you the story. He got head tapped. I think Barney got him in the corner of the end zone. And, you know, he was mad because he said the play took 14, 15 seconds. It was a scramble drill. And so they were arguing back and forth. And he said, you know, the crazy thing is at the end of the day, Dylan's ball placement is incredible. And I said, come on, man. Like, you 15 seconds, what are you talking about? He's like, no, Dad, seriously. Like, where that ball needs to be, he said his feel, and he said incredible twice. He said his feel is incredible. He's going to be way good. And this is a kid whose favorite ice cream is homemade vanilla or vanilla bean, right? Like, he's not an over-the-top kind of guy with adjectives and stuff. But the way that he was fawning over Dylan, man, I get it, because you can see him ooze talent. I haven't quite allowed myself to let go and see if he's great, but if he's better than good, Nebraska's offense could be incredible.
That's our guy, DB. Enjoy coaching this week. We'll see you back next week. We appreciate you joining us. Hopefully, I'm going to look at the schedule with Shano, but hopefully we can catch up with you again tomorrow too.
Yeah, you got it, my man. I'll be available.
All right, thanks, buddy.
Thanks, DB.
That's DB. That's Jared Hall from No Block, No Rock. He'll be back on Friday joining me to host again this week. Thank you, Jared.
Had
a great time.
Me. Appreciate you.
Didn't get to most of our rundown. Had a good show.
Looking out for that text in about 5 minutes.
Oh, this was a tame show. We're fine. That's Jared. I'm Ravi. We'll have more Hurrdat Sports Radio tomorrow.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.